Get on your knees and clean it again. I said on your knees, Robinson. Did I stutter? Craig Patterson stood over Angela Robinson, pointing at a floor that was already spotless. His voice echoed through the empty store at 2 a.m. as she slowly lowered herself, her arthritic knees screaming against the cold tile. That's where people like you belong anyway, he muttered, just loud enough for her to hear. What Craig didn't know was that the new janitor, watching from behind the shelf, wasn't Mike Henderson, a desperate construction worker. He was Damon Carter, the black billionaire who owned this entire company, and his hands were shaking with a rage he hadn't felt in 20 years. Before we continue this incredible story, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel and follow this journey to the very end. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Now let me take you back to where it all began. The email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Damon Carter almost deleted it. His assistant filtered thousands of messages daily, and this one had somehow slipped through. No subject line, no sender name, just words that burned into his screen like an accusation. Mr. Carter, they say you came from nothing. They say you remember what it's like to be poor and black in America. But do you really? Because right now in your Atlanta store, a man named Craig Patterson is destroying us. He's stealing our wages. He's denying our benefits. He's targeting us because we're black, because we're immigrants, because we're single mothers who can't fight back. My daughter is dying, Mr. Carter. She needs heart surgery. I've worked for your company for 3 years, and I still don't have insurance because your manager keeps playing games with my hours. I'm begging you. Come see what's happening under your own name. Don't send someone else. Come yourself. See what we see. Feel what we feel. Then decide what kind of man you really are. Damon read it 7 times. His first instinct was to call his head of operations, launch an investigation, follow proper channels. But one line kept echoing in his mind, then decide what kind of man you really are. He thought about his mother, Dorothy Carter, 32 years as a hotel maid in Chicago. He remembered her hands always cracked and bleeding from industrial cleaning chemicals. He remembered her coming home at midnight too exhausted to eat counting pennies to make rent. He remembered the manager who had fired her 3 months before she would have qualified for retirement benefits. Budget cuts, they said. She died of a heart attack 6 weeks later, still looking for work at 58 years old. At her funeral, Damon had made a promise. He would build a company where workers like his mother would be treated like human beings, where they would have dignity, where they would matter. 47 stores. $3 billion in revenue, his face on Forbes magazine. But had he kept that promise, at 6 a.m., Damon drove to a Goodwill in a neighborhood where nobody would recognize him. He bought worn jeans, scuffed work boots, and a faded jacket. He found a baseball cap and pulled it low over his eye. The man in the mirror wasn't a billionaire CEO. He was Mike Henderson, laid-off construction worker, desperate, invisible, exactly the kind of person predators love to destroy. 3 hours later, Damon walked through the automatic doors of his Atlanta flagship store. Nobody looked at him twice. Not the security guard, not the cashiers, not even the assistant manager who walked right past him like he didn't exist. This is what invisible feels like, he thought. This is what my mother felt every day. He wandered through the aisles watching. The employees moved with a nervous energy he recognized immediately. They smiled at customers, but the smiles vanished the moment the customers turned away. Their eyes kept darting toward the back of the store, toward management like prey watching for predators. Then he heard it. Crying. Not quiet crying. The kind of sobbing that comes from somewhere deeper than sadness. The sound of someone whose entire world was collapsing. Damon followed the sound to the employee restroom. Through the crack under the door, he saw a silver name badge lying on wet tile. Angela Robinson, custodial staff. He knocked gently. "Hello, are you okay in there?" The sobbing stopped, shuffling. The desperate sound of someone trying to piece themselves together. "I'm fine, please, just give me a minute." "You don't sound fine." A long pause, then the door opened. The woman who emerged was in her early 40s. Black, her custodial uniform was wrinkled and stained. Her eyes were swollen, her cheeks wet, her hands trembling as she reached for her fallen badge. But it was her hands that Damon noticed most. Cracked, bleeding, raw from chemicals that no worker should ever touch without proper protection. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't be doing this here. I need to get back to work before he finds me." "Before who finds you?" Angela's head snapped up. Fear flooded her eyes. "Nobody. I didn't say anything. I have to go." "Wait." Damon's voice was gentle. "I'm Mike. Just started looking for work here. What's going on?" Angela studied him for a long moment. Something in his eyes made her pause. Maybe it was kindness. Maybe it was recognition. Two black people standing in a back hallway, both of them invisible to everyone who mattered. How old are you, Mike? 52. You got family? Not anymore. Angela nodded slowly. Then let me give you some advice. Don't work here. Turn around and walk out that door and never come back. Why? Because this place will eat you alive, and nobody will even notice when you're gone. Before Damon could respond, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Heavy, deliberate. The footsteps of someone who expected the world to move out of his way. Angela transformed instantly. Her shoulders hunched, her eyes dropped. She made herself smaller, like a dog that had been beaten too many times. Robinson, what the hell are you doing back here? Craig Patterson was exactly what Damon expected. Mid-30s, white, slicked-back hair, and an expensive watch that didn't match his manager's polo shirt. But it was his eyes that told the real story. Cold, cruel, the eyes of a man who enjoyed causing pain. I was just using the restroom, Mr. Patterson. I'm going back to work right now. You've been gone for 12 minutes. I timed it. That's 12 minutes of company time you've stolen. I'm sorry, I just needed... I don't care what you needed. Craig stepped closer, his voice dropping to something intimate and threatening. You people always have excuses. Always got some sob story about why you can't do your job. I'm docking 30 minutes from your timesheet. 30 minutes? But I was only gone for... Are you arguing with me, Robinson? Angela's mouth snapped shut. Her eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears back. No, sir. Good, because I'd hate to have to write you up again. One more incident and you're out. And we both know you can't afford that, don't we? Not with your daughter's condition. Damon watched Angela flinch like she'd been slapped. Now get back to work, and you. Craig turned to Damon, looking him up and down with obvious contempt. Who are you? Mike Henderson, sir. I'm looking for work. Someone told me you might be hiring. Craig's expression shifted. His eyes moved over Damon's worn clothes, his calloused hands, his desperate posture. A slow smile spread across his face. That right? What kind of work you looking for, Mike? Anything, sir. I'm not picky. I just need a job. You willing to work nights, weekends, holidays? Yes, sir. Whatever you need. Craig's smile widened. I like that attitude. Come see me tomorrow at 9. I might have something for you. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. Don't thank me yet. Craig glanced at Angela, who was hurrying away with her mop bucket. Just remember what I said about people who cause problems. They don't last long around here. After Craig walked away, Damon stood in the hallway, his heart pounding with rage he hadn't felt since his mother's funeral. You people, the words echoed in his mind. He knew exactly what Craig had meant. He'd heard those words his whole life, from teachers who didn't believe he could succeed, from bankers who wouldn't give him his first loan, from competitors who couldn't accept that a black man from the South Side could build an empire. But he'd never expected to hear them in his own company. Damon found a quiet corner and pulled out his phone. He typed a message to his security chief, deep background on Craig Patterson, Atlanta flagship, everything, now. Then he went to find Angela. She was in the break room, standing at her locker, staring at a photograph taped to the inside of the door. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with bright eyes and a smile that could light up a room. That's your daughter. Angela spun around, startled. When she saw it was Mike, her shoulders relaxed slightly. Maya, she's 8. She's beautiful. She's sick. Angela's voice cracked. Congenital heart defect. She needs surgery or she won't make it to 10. The doctors have been very clear about that. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Being sorry doesn't pay for surgery. Angela closed her locker. I've worked here for 3 years, Mike. 3 years. Never missed a day. Never been late. I was supposed to get health insurance after 90 days of full-time work. That was the deal. What happened? Craig Patterson happened. Angela's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Every time I get close to qualifying, he cuts my hours. Just enough to keep me part-time, on paper, even though I work 40 hours every week. Then he gives the hours back after the qualification period resets. It's a game to him, and my daughter's the one paying for it. That's illegal. You think I don't know that? Angela laughed bitterly. I called the corporate complaint line 6 months ago, anonymous tip or so I thought. 3 days later, Craig called me into his office. He didn't say he knew about the complaint. He just smiled and told me that my attitude had been noticed and that I should think carefully about my future. He threatened you. He didn't have to use those words. I understood perfectly. Angela looked at Damon with eyes that had stopped hoping long ago. You want my advice, Mike Runn? There's nothing here for people like us. Just run." A voice cut across the break room. "Robinson, what are you doing socializing on company time?" Angela's face went pale. I don't want to hear it. Get back on the floor, now." Angela hurried out without another word. Damon turned to see a young black man in an electronics department vest watching the exchange with barely concealed anger. His name tag read Kevin Mitchell. "You the new guy?" Kevin asked quietly. "Trying to be." "Don't." "That's the second time someone's told me that today." Kevin checked to make sure no one was listening, then moved closer. "That woman Angela, she's not the only one. Craig's been running this game for months. He targets people who can't fight back. Single mothers, immigrants, anyone who's desperate enough to take whatever he dishes out." "Why doesn't someone report him? People have tried." Kevin's voice was bitter. "Last month, a woman named Teresa filed a formal complaint with HR. She had documentation, timesheets, everything. Know what happened? Her complaint got lost in the system. And Teresa, she got fired 2 weeks later for performance issues." "Where is she now?" "Nobody knows. She just disappeared." "That's what happens to people who fight back. They disappear." Kevin glanced toward the management offices, then back at Damon. "You seem like a decent guy, Mike, so I'm going to tell you something I don't tell most people." He leaned closer. "Craig Patterson is protected. I don't know by who or why, but somebody high up is covering for him. His numbers always look perfect. His reviews are always stellar, and anybody who threatens that just vanishes. If you're smart, you'll walk out that door and never look back." Damon wanted to tell Kevin the truth. He wanted to say that nobody was protecting Craig Patterson, that he would personally ensure this monster was destroyed. But he couldn't. Not yet. Not without evidence. "Thanks for the warning," he said instead. "But I'm going to stick around." Kevin shook his head. "Your funeral, man." At 9 a.m. the next morning, Damon returned to the store as Mike Henderson. He'd spent the previous night creating a complete fake identity. Construction worker. No family, no connections. The perfect victim. Craig was waiting in his office with the same predatory smile. "Henderson, right on time, I like that." "Thank you for seeing me, sir." "Have a seat." Craig gestured to a chair that was noticeably lower than his own. A power play. Damon recognized it immediately but said nothing. "Tell me about yourself, Mike. What's your story?" Damon launched into his cover story. Construction work that dried up, bills piling up, wife left him, no family, desperate for anything. With every word of manufactured desperation, Craig's smile grew wider. "I hear you, Mike. Economy's rough out there. A lot of people struggling." Craig leaned forward. "But I'm a fair man. I believe in giving people chances, even people who've fallen on hard times." "I appreciate that, sir." "Here's the deal. I've got an opening on night custodial. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., $12 an hour. You'd be working with Robinson, the woman you met yesterday. Think you can handle that?" "Absolutely, sir." "Good." Craig's voice dropped. "Now let me tell you how things work around here, Mike. I run a tight ship. I reward loyalty and hard work. People who understand the system do very well under my management. They get hours, they get promoted, they get taken care of. And people who don't," Craig's smile turned cold, "they find employment elsewhere, usually pretty quickly." "I understand completely, sir. No problems from me." "Perfect." Craig stood and extended his hand. "Welcome to the team, Mike. Don't let me down." Damon shook his hand, fighting the urge to squeeze until he heard bones crack. That night, he reported for his first shift. The store after hours was a different world. The lights dimmed to a sickly yellow glow. The background music silenced. The cheerful chaos of customers replaced by an eerie emptiness that felt like a tomb. Angela was waiting for him near the supply closet, her mop and bucket already assembled. "You actually came back," she said quietly. "I told you I would." "People say a lot of things. I'm not people." Angela almost smiled. Almost. "Come on, I'll show you the routine. And Mike? Yeah. Keep your head down tonight. Craig's in a mood. Someone in electronics came up short on their register, and he's looking for blood." They worked in silence for the first hour. Damon quickly understood the physical reality of Angela's existence. The mop was heavy. The bucket was heavier. The 45,000 square foot store stretched endlessly in every direction, and they were expected to clean every inch of it by dawn. But the physical labor wasn't the worst part. At 11:30 p.m., Craig emerged from his office and began his patrol. He moved through the aisles slowly, his footsteps echoing his eyes, scanning for any imperfection, any excuse. He found Jasmine Williams first. Jasmine was 8 months pregnant and working the overnight stocking shift. She was lifting a box of merchandise when Craig appeared behind her. "Williams, what the hell is this?" Jasmine turned, startled. "Sir, this shelf is crooked. Look at it. You call this acceptable?" Damon could see the shelf from where he stood. It was perfectly straight. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll fix it right away." "You've been making a lot of mistakes lately, Williams." Craig stepped closer. "I'm starting to wonder if you're focused on your job or on other things." His eyes dropped pointedly to her pregnant belly. "I'm focused, sir. I promise." "I hope so, because you know what happens to employees who can't perform. They get replaced. There are plenty of people out there who would love to have your position, people without distractions." Jasmine's hand moved protectively to her stomach. "Yes, sir." "Good. Now fix that shelf. And Williams, I'm watching you." He walked away and Jasmine's composure crumbled. She leaned against the shelf, her body shaking. Angela moved to her side immediately. Jasmine, breathe. Look at me." "He's going to fire me." Jasmine's voice was barely a whisper. "I know he is. He's been looking for a reason for weeks. And if I lose this job, I lose my insurance. The baby? You're not going to lose your job. Just keep your head down and don't give him any excuse." "I'm so tired, Angela. I can't keep doing this." "I know, baby. I know. But we don't have a choice. We just have to survive." Damon watched the exchange with a rage that burned like acid in his chest. Jasmine Williams was 8 months pregnant, working overnight shifts, being threatened by a man who saw her unborn child as a liability, and this was happening in his company. At midnight, Craig found Angela. She was mopping the floor near customer service, her movements slow and careful. Her left knee had been bothering her for weeks, but she couldn't afford to see a doctor. "Robinson, come here." Angela put down her mop and walked toward him. Damon positioned himself nearby, pretending to empty a trash can. "Yes, Mr. Patterson?" "I've been looking at the cleaning logs." Craig held up a clipboard. "You signed off on the East Wing restrooms at 10:45, but I checked them at 11 Huzro and they were still dirty." "Sir, I cleaned those restrooms myself. I don't know Batsmim." "Are you calling me a liar, Robinson?" "No, sir, I'm just saying." "Because it sounds like you're calling me a liar, and that would be very unfortunate. Very unfortunate indeed." Angela's shoulders slumped. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll clean them again." "Yes, you will, and you'll do it on your own time. I'm docking an hour from your timesheet for this." "An hour? But, sir." "Do you want to make it 2? Angela fell silent. Craig smiled. "That's what I thought. You know, Robinson, I've been very patient with you, very understanding. A lot of managers would have let you go months ago, but I believe in second chances. I believe people can improve, even people like you." There it was again. People like you. The words hung in the air like poison. "Now get back to work, and Robinson, I'm watching you, very closely." After Craig walked away, Angela's composure finally broke. She leaned against a counter, her body shaking with suppressed sobs. Damon moved closer. "Angela, don't." Her voice was raw. "Just don't. I can't do this right now." "I saw what happened. That was wrong." "Wrong?" Angela laughed bitterly. "Mike, you don't understand. This is how it is. This is how it's always been. For people like us, this is just life." "It doesn't have to be." Angela looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "Yeah, and who's going to change it? You, me, we're nobody, Mike. We're invisible. Nobody cares what happens to us." "I care." "Why? You just met me. You don't owe me anything." Damon thought about his mother, about her hands cracked and bleeding, about her eyes tired and defeated, about the promise he'd made at her grave. "Because someone should," he said quietly. "Because somebody should have cared about my mother and nobody did. And I swore that if I ever had the chance, I would never look away, never pretend I didn't see." Angela stared at him for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression. Not hope exactly. She was too broken for hope, but something close. "You're a strange man, Mike Henderson." "So I've been told." At 1 a.m., Damon's phone buzzed. A message from his security chief. "Background complete, attached files. You need to see this immediately." Damon found a quiet corner and opened the attachment. What he read made his blood run cold. Craig Patterson had worked for 4 different retail companies in the past 12 years. Each time he had received stellar performance reviews. Each time employee complaints had mysteriously disappeared. Each time he had been promoted. But the pattern was undeniable. At every company, Craig managed turnover among hourly employees skyrocketed. Specifically turnover among black employees, Hispanic employees, immigrant workers, and single mothers. They were being systematically pushed out, replaced with people who were more compliant, more scared, more willing to accept abuse. And Craig Patterson was the one doing the pushing. But it got worse. The financial records showed irregularities, hours assigned to employees who didn't exist, wages paid to accounts that couldn't be traced. Small amounts, because it's easy to miss in a large operation, but over time adding up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Craig Patterson wasn't just abusing his employees, he was stealing from them. Damon's hands shook as he scrolled through the documents. This wasn't just one bad manager. This was a systematic criminal enterprise operating under his company's name, and he had missed it completely. At 2 a.m., Craig's voice echoed through the empty store. "Henderson Robinson, get over here, now!" They gathered in the main aisle. Craig stood with his hands on his hips, his expression cold. "We have a problem. Corporate is asking questions about labor costs. They want to see cuts, efficiency improvements." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Starting next week, night custodials going from 2 people to 1. Robinson, you keep your position since you've been here longer, but you'll be handling the entire workload yourself." Angela's face went white. "Mr. Patterson, that's impossible. This store is 45,000 square feet. 2 people can barely... Are you telling me you can't handle it?" The threat was explicit. "Accept the impossible or lose everything." "No, sir, I can handle it." "Good, because I'd hate to have to find someone more capable, someone more... grateful." After Craig walked away, Angela slumped against a shelf. Her entire body was shaking. "I can't do this alone," she whispered. "I physically cannot do it, but if I say no, he'll fire me, and Maya's surgery is in 3 weeks. There has to be something. There's nothing, Mike, don't you understand? He's got all the power. We've got nothing." A phone rang. Angela's phone. She pulled it from her pocket and her face crumbled. "Hello? Yes, this is Angela Robinson." "What? No, you can't. Please. I'll have the money. I just need more time. Please. My daughter needs that surgery. She'll die without it. Please." Her voice broke completely. "Hello. The call had ended. "The hospital," Angela whispered. "They're canceling Maya's surgery. I missed too many payments. They're giving her spot to someone else." "When?" 3 weeks. They said I have 3 weeks to pay the deposit or they're moving on." "Dimkit." She collapsed against the shelf, sliding to the floor. The mop clattered beside her. Her body shook with sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than grief. My baby girl. She's going to die, and there's nothing I can do. Nothing." Damon knelt beside her. In that moment, he came closer than he'd ever come to revealing himself. The words were right there, ready to burst from his chest. "I'm going to help you. I swear to you, Angela. I'm going to fix this." Angela looked up at him through her tears. "How? You're a janitor, Mike, just like me. We can't fight people like Craig Patterson. We can't fight the hospital. We can't fight anyone. We're nothing." "You're not nothing. You never were." "Then why does the whole world treat me like I am?" Damon didn't have an answer. Not one he could give her, not yet. At 3 a.m., Damon positioned himself outside Craig's office. Through the thin walls, he could hear Craig on the phone. He pulled out his own phone and started recording. "Yeah, I've got the numbers for this pay period. 42 hours skimmed from the floor workers. It's all going to the usual account." A pause. Craig laughed. "The Robinson woman is perfect. Single mother, black, desperate. She'll take whatever I dish out because she has no choice. That's the key man. Find the ones who can't fight back and you can do whatever you want." Another pause. "No, nobody suspects anything. These people are too scared to talk. And even if they did, who's going to believe them? A bunch of minimum wage workers against a manager with perfect reviews, corporate would laugh them out of the building." Damon's hands trembled as he recorded, "Listen, I've got to go. Got a new hire I need to break in. Another desperate one. Construction worker, 52 years old, black guy, you know the type, easy to control." The call ended. Damon stood in the darkness, his phone clutched in his hand, his heart pounding with rage. He had Craig's confession. Wage theft. Benefit manipulation. Systematic targeting of vulnerable workers based on race and circumstance. It was enough to destroy him. But Damon needed more. He needed to know how deep this went. How many people were involved? How many lives had been destroyed? At 5 a.m., he witnessed something that made everything else fade into background noise. Craig emerged from his office and walked directly to where Angela was mopping the floor near the loading dock. She was exhausted, barely able to stand, her movement slow and labored. "Robinson?" Stop what you're doing and look at me." Angela stopped. She looked up with eyes that had cried themselves empty. Craig stepped closer. Too close. His voice dropped to something intimate and threatening. "I know you've been talking to the new guy, Mike. I've been watching you." "I haven't said anything, Mr. Patterson. I swear." "I hope not, because you know what happens to employees who spread rumors, who cause problems, who try to turn people against management. I would never." "Good, because your daughter's surgery is coming up, isn't it? In 3 weeks it would be a shame if something happened to your job before then. A real shame." He reached out and touched her face. Angela froze. "You're a good worker, Robinson, when you want to be. I'd hate to see anything bad happen to you." He let his hand drop and walked away. Angela stood motionless for a full minute. Then her legs gave out. Damon caught her before she hit the ground. Angela, look at me." Her eyes were vacant, shocked, like someone who had just witnessed their own death. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. I can't. "You don't have to, I promise you. You don't have to do this alone." "Why do you keep saying that? Why do you keep making promises you can't keep?" Damon looked into her eyes. This broken woman who had worked 3 years for nothing, who had given everything for a daughter she might lose, who had been ground down by a system designed to destroy people like her. "Because I can keep them," he said, "because I'm going to burn this whole thing to the ground. And when I'm done, Craig Patterson will never hurt anyone again." Angela stared at him. Something in his voice, something in his eyes made her pause. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Who are you really?" Damon wanted to tell her. The words were right there burning to get out, but not yet. Not until he had everything he needed. "Someone who sees you," he said. "Someone who's going to make this right." At 6 a.m. the shift ended. Angela walked to her car like a woman walking to her own execution. Damon watched her go, feeling the weight of every promise he'd made. His phone buzzed. A message from Rebecca, his head of HR. "Landed in Atlanta, ready when you are." Damon typed back, "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. The store. Be ready for war." He looked at the building one last time. His building, his company, his name on everything. Inside those walls, people were suffering. People were being destroyed. And he had been too busy celebrating profits to notice. That ended now. Craig Patterson had no idea who he had just threatened. He had no idea what was coming. But he was about to find out. And when he did, it would be worse than anything he could imagine. Rebecca Chen was waiting at the hotel when Damon arrived at 7 a.m. She had been his head of human resources for 8 years, one of the few executives he trusted completely. When she saw him walk through the lobby in his worn jeans and scuffed work boots, her eyes widened. "Damon? What in the world are you wearing? Long story." He pulled her into a corner away from other guests. "What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room. Not a word to anyone on the board. Not legal. Not operations. Nobody." Rebecca's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "What's going on?" Damon pulled out his phone and played the recording. Craig's voice filled the space between them, casual and cruel, bragging about stolen wages and targeted abuse. "The Robinson woman is perfect. Single mother, black, desperate. She'll take whatever I dish out because she has no choice." Rebecca's face went pale. "Oh my God." "It gets worse." Damon showed her the financial records his security team had compiled. "He's been running this operation for at least 8 months, possibly longer. Stolen wages redirected to phantom accounts. Benefits denied through schedule manipulation. And Rebecca, he's targeting specific employees. Black workers, immigrants, single mothers, anyone vulnerable enough to be exploited." "How did we miss this?" "His performance reviews are perfect. His numbers are stellar." "Because he's gaming the system. He pushes out anyone who might complain, then replaces them with fresh victims. High turnover looks bad on paper, but he's classified most departures as voluntary resignations. On the surface, everything looks clean." Rebecca sat down heavily. "How many people?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Tonight." "What do you need from me?" "I need you at the store tomorrow at 2 p.m. Bring a full audit team. Laptops. Authorization forms. Everything we need to process immediate corrections. When I take this man down, I want to fix every single thing he broke. On the spot, in front of everyone." "Damon, if this is as bad as you're saying, we should involve legal. We should..." "No." His voice was harder than she'd ever heard it. Legal will want to manage this quietly. Minimize liability. Protect the company's reputation. But this isn't about the company's reputation, Rebecca. This is about people. Real people who have been suffering while I sat in my office celebrating quarterly profits. He thought about Angela, about Maya, about a little girl who might die because a monster had denied her mother health insurance. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., he repeated. Be ready. That evening, Damon returned to the store for his second night shift. Angela was already there, moving even slower than the night before. Her face was drawn, her eyes hollow. Did you sleep? He asked. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Maya's face, heard the doctor's voice telling me she needs that surgery, saw Craig smile when he told me my hours were being cut again. Again, he cut your hours again. Angela nodded. Got a message this afternoon. Next week I'm down to 8 hours. 8 hours, Mike. That's $64 after taxes. How am I supposed to survive on $64 a week? He's trying to force you out. I know. He wants me to quit so he doesn't have to fire me. If I quit, there's no unemployment, no severance, no paper trail. I just disappear like everyone else. Damon's jaw clenched. What if you don't quit? What if you refuse to leave? Then he'll find another way. He always does. Angela picked up her mop. Come on, we've got work to do, and Mike, whatever you're thinking about doing, don't. It's not worth it. Craig Patterson has been here for 8 months, and everyone who's tried to fight him has ended up destroyed. I don't want that to happen to you, too. What if I told you he's the one who's going to be destroyed? Angela looked at him with tired eyes. I'd say you're dreaming, and dreams don't pay for heart surgery. At 10:30 p.m., Kevin Mitchell appeared in the break room. His face was ashen, his hands shaking. Angela, Mike, I need to talk to you. What's wrong? Angela asked. Craig called me into his office an hour ago. He knows. Knows what? Kevin glanced around, then lowered his voice to barely a whisper. He knows someone's been asking questions about the schedules, about the missing hours, about everything. Damon's stomach dropped. How? I don't know, but he was asking about you specifically, Mike. Wanted to know who you've been talking to, what questions you've been asking, where you came from. Angela grabbed Damon's arm. Mike, you need to get out of here. Tonight, right now, if Craig suspects you're investigating him, I'm not running. This isn't about running. This is about survival. You don't know what he's capable of. Actually, I do. Damon met her eyes. I know exactly what he's capable of, and that's why I'm not leaving. Kevin shook his head. You're crazy, man, both of you. Craig Patterson has connections. He's got people at corporate who protect him. He's untouchable. Nobody's untouchable. Yeah, tell that to Teresa Martinez. She thought she could fight him too. Now nobody even knows where she is. A voice cut across the break room. What's this, a little meeting? Craig Patterson stood in the doorway, his arms crossed, his smile like a knife. Mr. Patterson? Kevin straightened immediately. I didn't ask you, Mitchell. Get back to your department, now. Kevin fled without another word. Craig turned his attention to Angela and Damon, his eyes moving between them like a predator deciding which prey to take first. Robinson, I've noticed you and Henderson here have become quite friendly. We just work together, sir, that's all. Is it? Craig stepped closer. Because I've been hearing things, Robinson, disturbing things, about employees who think they can undermine my authority, who think they can go around asking questions, causing problems. His eyes locked on Damon. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you, Henderson? No, sir, I just keep my head down and do my job. That's good, that's very good. Craig's voice dropped. Because I'd hate to think I made a mistake hiring you. I'd hate to think you're not the loyal, grateful employee you pretended to be. I'm exactly who I said I am, sir. We'll see about that. Craig turned back to Angela. Robinson, my office. Now, we need to discuss your performance. Angela's face went white. Sir, I have to finish I said now. She followed him without another word, her head bowed, her shoulders hunched. Damon watched her go, his fists clenched so tight his nails drew blood from his palms. 20 minutes later, Angela emerged from Craig's office. She walked past Damon without looking at him, went straight to the women's restroom, and didn't come out. Damon waited 5 minutes, then 10, then 15. Finally, he knocked on the door. Angela, are you okay? No answer. Angela, talk to me. What did he say? A long silence, then barely audible, go away, Mike. I'm not going anywhere. What did he do? The door opened slowly. Angela stood there, her face wet with tears, her body trembling. He said he's filing a complaint against me with corporate. Insubordination. creating a hostile work environment. He said by this time next week I'll be terminated for cause. He can't do that. You haven't done anything wrong. He can do whatever he wants, Mike. Don't you understand? He's got documentation, performance reviews, write-ups, incident reports, all fake, but who's going to know? Who's going to believe me over him? She slumped against the wall. Maya's surgery, my job, everything, it's all gone. Everything I've worked for, everything I've sacrificed, gone. It's not gone. I promise you, Angela, this isn't over. Stop saying that. Her voice cracked with anger and despair. Stop making promises you can't keep. You're a janitor, Mike. You're nobody, just like me. We're both nobody, and people like Craig Patterson, they eat nobodies like us for breakfast. What if I'm not nobody? What if I'm someone who can actually help? Angela laughed bitterly. Then you would have helped by now. You would have done something instead of just watching and listening and making empty promises. The words hit Damon like a physical blow. She was right. He had been watching, gathering evidence, building a case, and while he did that, Angela was being destroyed one piece at a time. Tomorrow, he said, I need you to trust me for one more day. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., everything changes. Why? What's happening tomorrow? I can't tell you yet, but I need you to be here, at 2 p.m., in the store. Can you do that? Angela stared at him for a long moment. Her eyes searched his face, looking for the lie, the empty promise, the disappointment she'd learned to expect from everyone who'd ever claimed to care about her. One more day, she whispered. One more day, and then I'm done. If nothing changes tomorrow, I'm walking out that door and never coming back. Maya and I will figure something out. We always do. You won't have to figure anything out, not anymore. At midnight, Damon witnessed something that made his mission even more personal. He was emptying trash cans near the loading dock when he heard voices. Craig's voice, and another voice he didn't recognize. He pressed himself against the wall and listened. The audit is scheduled for next month, the unknown voice said. Corporate's sending a team to review labor costs. You need to clean up your books. Already done, Craig sounded confident. I've been shifting numbers around for weeks. By the time they get here, everything will look perfect. What about the employees, the ones who've been complaining? What about them? Robinson will be gone by Friday. Mitchell knows better than to talk. And the new guy Henderson, I've got my eye on him. One wrong move and he's out. What if someone talks anyway? Craig laughed. To who nobody cares about minimum wage workers, especially not the kind I've got here. Half of them can barely speak English. The other half are too scared to say anything. And even if they did talk, who's going to believe them? I've got 8 months of perfect documentation, reviews, reports, numbers, all showing that I'm the best damn manager this company has ever seen. Just be careful. Carter's been making noise about employee welfare lately, talking about it in board meetings. If he decides to look into this store... Damon Carter, Craig's voice dripped with contempt. Please, the man's a fraud. All that talk about caring about workers, about dignity, about respect. It's just PR. You think a billionaire actually gives a damn about people like Angela Robinson? He doesn't even know she exists. Damon's hands curled into fists. Carter built his empire the same way everyone else does, Craig continued. By squeezing every penny out of the people at the bottom. The only difference is he's better at pretending he cares. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the bottom line. And my bottom line looks fantastic. Just don't get sloppy. I never get sloppy. That's why I'm still here, and all those complainers are gone. The conversation ended. Footsteps moved away. Damon stood in the darkness, breathing heavily, trying to control the rage that was threatening to consume him. Craig Patterson thought he was a fraud. Thought he didn't care about workers like Angela. Thought the only thing that mattered was money. Tomorrow, Craig Patterson was going to learn exactly how wrong he was. At 2 a.m., Damon found Angela sitting alone in the break room staring at the photograph of Maya taped inside her locker. Can't sleep, he asked. Can't stop thinking. She didn't look away from the photograph. She doesn't know you know. Maya, she doesn't know how bad things are. She still thinks everything's going to be okay. She still believes in happy endings. Maybe she's right to believe. She's 8 years old, Mike. 8 years old with a hole in her heart, and she still has more hope than I do. Angela's voice broke. What kind of mother does that make me that my sick child has to be the strong one? It makes you human. It makes you someone who's been carrying too much for too long. I used to believe in things you know. Angela finally turned to look at him. When I was young, I believed that if you worked hard and did the right thing, good things would happen. My mama used to say that. Angela, you keep your head up and your hands clean and God will provide. I believed her. What happened? Reality happened. I worked hard. I did everything right. I showed up early. I stayed late. I never complained. And what did I get? A manager who treats me like garbage. A system that's designed to keep me down. A daughter who might die because I can't afford to save her. She closed her locker door. You want to know the worst part? It's not the money. It's not even Craig Patterson. It's the feeling that I don't matter. That no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, I'm always going to be invisible. Just another black woman, cleaning floors, easy to ignore, easy to replace, easy to forget. Damon sat down across from her. My mother worked as a hotel maid for 32 years, he said quietly. Same hotel, same job, same invisible work that everybody depends on but nobody sees. She raised me on her own, worked double shifts to pay for my school supplies, gave up everything so I could have a chance. Angela looked at him with new interest. What happened to her? She got fired 3 months before she would have qualified for retirement. Budget cuts, they said. She died 6 weeks later. Heart attack, 58 years old. I'm sorry. At her funeral, I made a promise. I swore I would never forget where I came from. Never forget what people like my mother go through. Never look away from suffering just because it's easier not to see. He met Angela's eyes. I've spent a lot of years building something I thought would make a difference, and somewhere along the way I lost sight of what really mattered. I got so caught up in numbers and growth and success that I forgot about the people. The real people doing the real work, being treated like they don't exist. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to understand something. When I say things are going to change, I'm not just making empty promises. I'm making a commitment to you, to Maya, to everyone who's ever been made to feel invisible. Angela studied his face for a long moment. Who are you, Mike Henderson? Because you don't talk like any janitor I've ever met. Damon almost told her. The words were right there, ready to burst out. But he held back. Not yet. A few more hours. I'm someone who's about to keep his promise. At 4 a.m., everything accelerated. Jasmine Williams collapsed near the checkout lanes. One moment, she was stocking shelves, moving carefully with her 8-month pregnant belly. The next moment, she was on the ground, clutching her stomach, crying out in pain. Angela reached her first. Jasmine, what's wrong? The baby. Something's wrong with the baby. It hurts. Oh God, it hurts so much. Damon pulled out his phone. I'm calling 911. No? Jasmine grabbed his arm. If I go to the hospital, Craig will fire me. He's been waiting for a reason. He told me this morning that if I miss one more shift, I'm done. Jasmine, you could be losing the baby. And if I lose this job, I lose my insurance. How am I supposed to pay for the delivery, for the medical bills I can't afford? She screamed as another wave of pain hit her. Angela looked at Damon with desperate eyes. We have to do something. I'm calling 911, now. He made the call. 5 minutes later, Craig Patterson appeared. What the hell is going on here? Jasmine collapsed, Angela said. We called an ambulance. You did what? Craig's face twisted with anger. Do you have any idea how this looks? An employee collapsing on company property, the liability alone. She's pregnant, you monster! Angela's voice rose to a shout. She could be losing her baby. Watch your tone, Robinson. No, I'm done watching my tone. I'm done keeping my head down. I'm done pretending that any of this is okay. Angela stepped toward Craig, her fear replaced by something fierce and desperate. You've been torturing us for months, cutting our hours, denying our benefits, treating us like we're not even human. And now a woman is lying on the floor, possibly losing her child, and all you care about is liability. That's it, Craig's voice was cold. You're done. Robinson, you're fired, effective immediately. You can't fire me. I just did. Get out of my store. It's not your store. Angela's voice cracked but didn't break. You're just a manager. A small, cruel, pathetic little man who gets off on hurting people who can't fight back. Security, Craig shouted. Someone get security. The paramedics arrived at the same moment. They rushed to Jasmine, assessed her condition, lifted her onto a stretcher. As they wheeled her toward the exit, Jasmine reached out and grabbed Angela's hand. Don't let him win, she whispered. Please, don't let him win. Then she was gone. Craig turned back to Angela, his face red with fury. I want you out of this building in 5 minutes, and if I ever see you on company property again, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Angela didn't move. Did you hear me? I said get out. She's not going anywhere. Everyone turned. Damon had stepped forward, his posture completely changed. He no longer looked like a desperate janitor. He looked like something else entirely. Who the hell do you think you're talking to, Henderson? Craig sputtered. My name isn't Henderson. Damon pulled his phone from his pocket and pressed play. Craig's recorded voice filled the store. The Robinson woman is perfect. Single mother, black, desperate. She'll take whatever I dish out because she has no choice. Craig's face went white. That's your voice, Damon said calmly. Recorded 2 nights ago, right here in this store. You want to hear more? There's plenty. Confessions of wage theft, benefit fraud, systematic targeting of vulnerable employees. It's quite comprehensive. You recorded me illegally. That's inadmissible. I'll have you. Georgia is a one-party consent state, perfectly legal. Damon stepped closer. And even if it wasn't, do you really think that matters? Do you think anyone is going to care about legal technicalities when they hear what you've been doing to these people? I don't know who you think you are, but I'm Damon Carter. The name dropped like a bomb. Craig's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. I'm the CEO of Carter Retail Empire. I own this store. I own every store. I own the building you're standing in and the chair you sit in and every single thing you've touched for the past 8 months. Damon reached into his pocket and pulled out his company ID. Gold badge, his photograph, his name. And you, Craig Patterson, are finished. The color drained completely from Craig's face. He looked around wildly like an animal searching for escape. Mr. Carter, sir, I had no idea. If you had known that I was watching, that I was listening, that someone finally saw what you were doing to these people, Damon's voice rose. Is that the only reason you would have behaved differently, because the boss was watching? I can explain everything. The hours, the schedules, it's all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Damon held up his phone. You want to hear another recording, Craig? Because I've got dozens. Hours of you bragging about how easy it is to exploit desperate workers. How you target black employees and immigrants and single mothers because they can't fight back. How you've been stealing from their paychecks and directing the money to phantom accounts. Craig's legs buckled. He grabbed a shelf for support. That's not true. Those accounts are legitimate. They're fraud, federal fraud, the kind that puts people in prison for a very long time. Damon looked around the store. Other employees had gathered, drawn by the commotion. Kevin Mitchell, 2 overnight stalkers, a security guard who looked completely lost. Everyone, Damon's voice carried across the floor. I want you to hear this. My name is Damon Carter. I own this company, and I am here to tell you that everything this man has done to you ends tonight. He turned back to Craig. Security. I want that man escorted from the premises. He is no longer an employee of Carter Retail Empire. His termination is effective immediately. You can't do this, Craig's voice cracked. I have rights. I have a contract. You had a contract. Fraud voids all employment agreements. And Craig, when the federal investigators get these recordings, when they see the financial documents, when they hear the testimonies of every employee you victimized, you're going to wish termination was the worst thing that happened to you. The security guard stepped forward hesitantly. Sir, do you want me to remove him now? And Craig. Damon met the man's eyes one final time. My mother was a maid. She spent her whole life being treated the way you treat people. She died broken and invisible because of men like you. This is for her. This is for Angela. This is for every person you've ever made to feel like they don't matter. As security took Craig's arms, the man made one last desperate attempt. You can't prove anything. It's my word against theirs. I've got documentation. You've got fabricated documentation that's going to be torn apart by every auditor I send in here. You've got phantom employees that don't exist. You've got a trail of destruction that leads right back to you. Damon stepped closer, his voice dropping. And you've got my word that I will personally ensure you face every consequence the law allows. Craig was dragged toward the exit, still screaming about his rights, about unfair treatment, about how he would sue. The doors closed behind him. Silence fell over the store. Angela stood frozen in place, tears streaming down her face, unable to process what had just happened. Damon walked toward her slowly. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I'm sorry you had to suffer while I gathered evidence. I'm sorry I let you believe you were alone. Angela's voice was barely a whisper. You're really him. You're really Damon Carter. Yes. But you worked beside me. You cleaned floors with me. You listened to me cry about Maya, and you never said anything. I needed to see the truth, not the truth that shows up in reports and reviews. The real truth. The truth that people like Craig Patterson spend their whole careers hiding. Angela's legs gave out. Damon Carter held her up. Maya, she gasped. Maya's surgery, The hospital canceled it. I don't have the money. Your daughter will have her surgery. I'm going to make sure of it personally. I can't pay you back. You don't owe me anything. I owe you. Damon's voice cracked with emotion. I built this company to be different, to be better. And somewhere along the way, I lost sight of that. You showed me what I'd become blind to. The suffering that was happening right under my nose while I sat in boardrooms celebrating profits. Angela sobbed into his shoulder. Around them, the other employees stood in stunned silence. Kevin Mitchell, the overnight stalkers, even the security guard who'd just escorted Craig out. Damon looked at each of them. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., my HR team will be here. We're going to review every personnel file, every timesheet, every denied benefit. If Craig stole from you, you'll be repaid. If you were wrongfully denied insurance, you'll be enrolled immediately. If you were mistreated in any way, we're going to make it right. What about our jobs? Kevin asked. Are we all fired too? Nobody's fired. Nobody who didn't deserve it. Damon's voice was firm. This store is going to keep running, but it's going to run differently, the way it always should have. His phone buzzed. A message from Rebecca. Just heard. Hospital confirmed Jasmine Williams stable. Baby okay? False alarm caused by stress and exhaustion. She's asking for ya are you. Damon felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Jasmine's going to be okay. The baby's fine. Angela let out a sob of relief. Go home, Damon told her. Get some sleep. Be back here at 2 p.m. There's a lot of work to do, and I want you here for all of it. I don't understand. Why me? Because you didn't quit. Because when everything fell apart, you kept fighting. Because you reminded me what courage looks like when it has nothing left to lose. Damon met her eyes. And because I think this store needs a new manager, someone who knows what the employees go through, someone who actually cares about people. Angela stared at him. You want me to be the manager. I want you to be the manager, if you want the job. I don't have experience. I don't have a degree. I've never managed anything in my life except trying to keep my daughter alive. That's exactly the kind of experience I'm looking for. Damon smiled for the first time since this whole journey began. We'll provide training, support, whatever you need, but the heart of what makes a good leader, you already have that. You always did. Angela wiped her eyes. What about Maya's surgery? What about already being handled? I made some calls while Craig was being escorted out. The hospital is reinstating her appointment. The full cost will be covered. And Angela, he squeezed her hand. After the surgery, when Maya is healthy and strong, I want you to bring her here. I want to meet the little girl whose mother taught a billionaire CEO what leadership really means. Angela broke down completely. Years of fear, years of struggle, years of being invisible, all of it releasing at once. Damon held her while she cried. Around them, the store stood empty and quiet, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, the night shift over in more ways than one. At 6 a.m., Damon walked out of the store and watched the sun rise over Atlanta. His phone rang. Rebecca. Everything's set for 2 p.m. I've got a team of 6 auditors ready. Legal is on standby. What's the status there? Craig Patterson is gone. Permanently. How did he take it? About as well as you'd expect. He's going to fight. He's going to claim wrongful termination, illegal recording, everything he can think of. Let him fight. With the evidence we have, he doesn't stand a chance. I know. Damon watched the sky turn pink and gold. Rebecca, I want you to do something for me. Pull the records from every store Craig Patterson has ever managed, every company he's ever worked for. I want to know how many people he's hurt, how many lives he's destroyed, and then I want to find them, every single one. That could take months. I don't care how long it takes. These people deserve to know that someone finally saw what happened to them, that someone finally cared. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. You really were undercover this whole time, working night shift. Custodial to mopping floors, emptying trash, getting screamed at by a petty tyrant who thought he was untouchable. Damon laughed softly. My back is killing me. What made you do it? The email. Damon thought about his mother, about Angela, about Maya's photograph taped inside a break room locker. I needed to remember why I built this company in the first place. I needed to see what I'd been missing, and I needed to find out if I was still the man I promised my mother I would be. And what did you find out? Damon watched the sunrise paint the sky. I found out I'd forgotten, but I remember now. He hung up and turned back toward his car. There was still work to do, a store to rebuild, employees to restore, a broken system to fix. But for the first time in years, Damon Carter knew exactly who he was and why he was here. The man who saw the invisible. The man who heard the voiceless. The man who would never look away again. At 1:47 p.m., Damon stood outside the Atlanta store and watched his employees arrive for what they had been told was an emergency meeting. They came in groups of 2 and 3, their faces confused and frightened. Word had already spread about what happened to Craig Patterson. Rumors were flying. Some said he had been arrested. Others said he had simply been fired. Nobody knew the full truth. Angela was the last to arrive. She had changed out of her custodial uniform into a simple blue dress, the nicest thing she owned. Her hair was pulled back, and despite the exhaustion in her eyes, there was something different about the way she carried herself. Something that looked almost like hope. "You came?" Damon said. "You asked me to." "How are you feeling?" Angela laughed softly. "I don't know. I haven't slept. Every time I close my eyes, I keep waiting to wake up and find out this was all a dream, that Craig is still here, that nothing has changed." "It's not a dream, and everything has changed." Rebecca Chen emerged from the store entrance. "Damon, we're ready. Everyone's inside." "Thank you, Rebecca." He turned to Angela. "Stay close to me. I want you to see everything that happens today." "Why?" "Because you need to understand what's possible when someone with power actually uses it for good, and because in about 2 hours you're going to be the one responsible for making sure it keeps happening." They walked into the store together. At 2:00 p.m., 43 employees gathered near the customer service area. Rebecca's team had set up a temporary processing center with laptops, printers, and stacks of authorization forms. The store was closed to customers for the day, and the silence felt strange after years of constant retail chaos. Damon stepped forward and the murmuring stopped. "My name is Damon Carter. Most of you have never seen me before. Some of you may not even know who I am. But I own this company. Every store, every product, every paycheck that comes out of Carter Retail Empire comes from decisions I make." He paused, letting the words sink in. "For the past 3 days, I've been working here undercover. I mopped floors. I emptied trash cans. I worked the night shift alongside people who didn't know they were training their own CEO, and I saw things that I am deeply, deeply ashamed of." A woman in the back began to cry softly. "I saw a manager who treated human beings like they were worthless. I saw schedules manipulated to deny benefits. I saw wages stolen. I saw pregnant women threatened with termination. I saw single mothers driven to despair because a petty tyrant enjoyed watching them suffer." His voice grew stronger. "That ends today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today." He gestured to Rebecca and her team. "We're going to review every personnel file in this store. If you were denied benefits you earned, you'll be enrolled immediately. If hours were stolen from your paychecks, you'll be repaid in full plus interest. If you were written up unfairly or threatened with termination for no cause, those records will be expunged." Kevin Mitchell raised his hand. "Mr. Carter, what about Craig Patterson? Is he really gone?" "Craig Patterson was terminated this morning. He's also under investigation for federal wage theft and benefit fraud. What happens to him legally is out of my hands now, but I can promise you this, he will never work in retail again. Not for my company, not for any company. I'll make sure of it personally." A ripple of relief moved through the crowd. But removing one bad manager isn't enough. The system that allowed him to operate has to change. That's why I'm implementing something new. Effective immediately, every Carter retail store will have an employee council, workers elected by workers with direct access to corporate leadership. If something like this ever starts happening again, you won't have to send anonymous emails and pray someone listens. You'll have a direct line to people who can actually do something. "What about our jobs, someone called out. "Are we safe?" Nobody is losing their job because of what happened here. Nobody except the people who were responsible for the abuse, and those people are already gone. Damon looked at Angela, who stood at the edge of the crowd, still not quite believing any of this was real. "There's one more thing. This store needs a new manager. Someone who understands what you've been through. Someone who will fight for you instead of against you. Someone who knows what it feels like to be invisible and never wants anyone else to feel that way." He extended his hand toward Angela. "I've asked Angela Robinson to take the position. If she accepts, she'll start immediately with full training and support from corporate." Every eye in the room turned to Angela. Her face flushed. Her hands trembled. For a moment, she looked like she might run. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. "You've already been doing it," Damon replied. "Every time you helped a coworker through a hard shift, every time you covered for someone who was struggling, every time you refused to break even when Craig tried to destroy you, That's leadership, Angela. The title just makes it official. The room was silent, waiting. Angela looked at the faces of her coworkers, people she had worked beside for years, people who had suffered alongside her, people who had been told they were nothing by a man who had never done a real day's work in his life. "Okay," she said finally. Her voice was barely audible. "Okay, I'll do it." The applause started slowly, then built into something thunderous. Kevin was the first to reach her, pulling her into a hug. Then others followed. Women who had cried in bathroom stalls together. Men who had quietly shared their frustrations during smoke breaks. A community of invisible people who had finally been seen. At 2:34 p.m., Rebecca pulled Damon aside. "We've got a problem." "What kind of problem?" "I've been going through the financial records. The fraud goes deeper than we thought. Craig wasn't working alone." Damon felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "He had help. Someone at corporate was covering for him, approving his expense reports without review, burying employee complaints before they reached anyone who could act on them, making sure his performance reviews always came up clean." "Who?" Rebecca handed him a tablet with a series of emails. "Marcus Webb, Regional Vice President for the Southeast." Damon stared at the name. Marcus Webb had been with the company for 12 years. He had personally promoted him to VP 3 years ago. "Are you sure about this?" "The emails are pretty damning. Webb was getting a cut of the stolen wages. Craig would skim hours from employees, assign them to phantom workers, and Webb would approve the payments to accounts they both controlled. It's a partnership." Damon's hands clenched into fists. "How much?" "Based on what we've found so far, probably close to $400,000 over the past 8 months, and that's just from this store. If they were running the same scheme at other locations, it could be millions." "Yes." Damon felt sick. He had trusted Marcus Webb, had dinner at his house, knew his wife and kids, and the whole time Webb had been stealing from the most vulnerable people in the company. Where is he now? At the regional office. He doesn't know anything's happened yet. As far as he knows, this is just a routine store visit. Get him on a plane to Atlanta, tonight. Tell him it's an emergency meeting about the store transition. Don't mention Craig. Don't mention anything. What are you going to do? Damon looked through the glass at the employees being processed by Rebecca's team. Angela was helping an older woman fill out paperwork, her face patient and kind. "I'm going to give him the same chance I gave Craig Patterson, a chance to explain himself, and then I'm going to watch him fail." At 3:15 p.m., Damon found Jasmine Williams sitting alone in the break room. She had been discharged from the hospital that morning and had come straight to the store despite doctor's orders to rest. "You should be home," Damon said gently. "I needed to see this." Jasmine's hand rested on her belly. "I needed to know it was real, that we're actually free." "How's the baby?" "Fine. The doctors said it was just stress. My body was shutting down from exhaustion and fear." She laughed bitterly. "Craig almost killed my baby, Mr. Carter. He almost killed my baby because he thought it was fun to watch me suffer." "I'm sorry. I should have found out sooner." "I should have." "You found out. That's what matters." Jasmine looked up at him with eyes that were older than her 24 years. "Most people in your position would never have come here, would never have done what you did. They would have sent investigators, filed reports, let lawyers handle everything from a safe distance." "That's not who I am." "I know. I saw you mopping floors at 3 a.m. I saw the way you looked at Angela when Craig was screaming at her. You weren't just gathering evidence. You were angry. You cared." Damon sat down across from her. "When I was a kid, my mother worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. She would come home so tired she could barely stand, and I used to think when I grow up, I'm going to change things. I'm going to make sure no one ever has to work that hard for so little. No one ever has to feel that invisible." "Did you?" The question hit him like a physical blow. "I thought I did. I built policies. I set standards. I gave speeches about employee welfare and corporate responsibility." He shook his head. "But I got so far away from the ground that I couldn't see what was actually happening. I was celebrating numbers while people like you were being destroyed." "So what are you going to do about it?" "Everything I can, starting right here, starting today." Jasmine nodded slowly. "My grandmother used to say that power isn't what you have, it's what you do with it. Most people with power use it to get more power, but some people use it to lift others up. Which kind do you think I am?" Jasmine studied his face for a long moment. "Ask me again in a year, when you've had time to forget what you saw here. When the numbers start looking good again, when it's easier to look away. And if I don't look away, then you might actually be what you say you are. She smiled softly. But Mr. Carter, don't make promises you can't keep. We've heard too many of those already. At 4:02 p.m., Kevin Mitchell approached Damon with a folder. Mr. Carter, there's something you need to see. What is it? I've been keeping records, unofficial ones. Every time Craig did something wrong, I wrote it down. Dates, times, witnesses. I didn't know if anyone would ever care, but I thought maybe someday. He handed over the folder. Damon opened it and began to read. The documentation was meticulous. Page after page of incidents. Craig berating employees. Craig manipulating schedules. Craig making comments about race and gender that should have resulted in immediate termination. Why didn't you report this? I tried. Twice. The complaints got buried, and then my hours got cut. Then I got written up for things I didn't do. Kevin's voice was bitter. I learned pretty quick that complaining made things worse, not better. I'm sorry the system failed you. It didn't fail me, Mr. Carter. It worked exactly the way it was designed to work. The system protects people like Craig Patterson, people with titles and connections, people who know how to play the game. It wasn't built for people like me. Then we need to build a new system. Kevin laughed humorlessly. With all due respect, sir, I've heard that before. Every new CEO, every new initiative, every new policy, they all promise change, and nothing ever changes. Not really. What would it take to convince you? Kevin thought for a moment. Action, not words, not policies, not mission statements, action. When someone like Craig Patterson appears again, and he will appear because there's always another one, what happens? Does he get protected? Does he get quietly transferred to another store? Or does he get destroyed like he deserves? He gets destroyed. We'll see. Kevin started to walk away, then stopped. Mr. Carter, Angela Robinson is a good choice for manager. She's the only person in this building who never stopped caring about us, even when caring hurt her. Don't let her down. I won't. You better not, because if you do, you'll have to answer to all of us. At 4:45 p.m., Angela found Damon sitting alone in Craig's former office. The nameplate had already been removed. The personal items had been boxed up. It was just an empty room now, waiting for its next occupant. Strange feeling, isn't it? Angela said. Being in here without being afraid? Is that how it felt, being called in here? Every time, my stomach would drop, my hands would shake, I would try to figure out what I'd done wrong, even when I knew I hadn't done anything. That's what he did to us, made us feel guilty for existing. She sat down in the visitor's chair, the same chair where she had been humiliated and threatened so many times. He sat right there. She pointed to the desk chair. He would lean back with his feet up and smile, like a cat playing with a mouse. He enjoyed it, Mr. Carter. It wasn't just about money or power. He actually enjoyed watching us suffer. I know, I heard him say it. And now I'm supposed to sit in that chair. I'm supposed to be the manager, me, Angela Robinson, who cleans toilets for a living. Angela Robinson, who worked 3 years without missing a day, who never gave up on her daughter, who stood up to Craig Patterson when everyone else was too scared to speak. I was scared too. Being scared and doing it anyway is called courage. Angela was quiet for a moment. Maya called me this morning, after I told her the surgery was back on. Do you know what she said? What? She said, I knew it would be okay, Mama. I knew God would send someone to help us. 8 years old, sick, scared, and she still believed. Angela's eyes filled with tears. I stopped believing a long time ago, Mr. Carter. After Maya's father left, after the bills started piling up, after Craig started tormenting me, I stopped believing that good things could happen to people like me. And now I don't know what to believe. A billionaire CEO mopped floors next to me. The monster who made my life hell is gone. My daughter is going to get her surgery, and I'm being offered a job I never dreamed I could have. She looked at Damon with eyes that were searching for answers. Why did you really come here? You could have sent investigators. You could have handled this from your office in Chicago. Why did you put on old clothes and work the night shift like one of us? Damon leaned forward. Because I needed to remember. When you build something big, it's easy to forget where you came from. It's easy to look at spreadsheets and think you understand what's happening. But spreadsheets don't show you the woman crying in a bathroom. They don't show you the pregnant worker being threatened. They don't show you the fear in people's eyes when they hear their manager's footsteps. So you came to see. I came to see. And I came to remember my mother. She was a maid. She worked herself to death cleaning up after people who never learned her name. I built this company because I wanted to create something different, something she would have been proud of. Would she be proud? The question cut deep. I don't know. Before this week I thought so. Now I'm not sure. I let a monster operate in my name for 8 months. I celebrated profits while people were being destroyed. I told myself the policies were enough, the standards were enough, the systems were enough. They weren't. No, they weren't. Because systems can be corrupted. Policies can be ignored. The only thing that really matters is people. People who pay attention. People who care. People who refuse to look away. Angela nodded slowly. That's why you want me to be manager, isn't it? Not because I have skills or experience, because you think I'll pay attention. Will you, Mr. Carter, I've been invisible my whole life. I know what it looks like. I know how it feels. If someone in this store is suffering, I'll see it, because I've been where they are. I am where they are. That's exactly what I need. At 6:30 p.m., Marcus Webb's plane landed at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson. Damon received the notification on his phone and felt his jaw tighten. The man who had enabled Craig Patterson for months was about to walk into a trap. The question was how he would react when he realized the game was over. He's here, Damon told Rebecca. Have security bring him directly to the store. Don't tell him why. What are you going to do? The same thing I did with Craig. Give him a chance to tell the truth, and then watch him lie. 20 minutes later, Marcus Webb walked into the Atlanta flagship store expecting a routine transition meeting. What he found was Damon Carter standing in the middle of an empty sales floor, flanked by Rebecca Chen and 2 corporate security officers. Damon? Marcus's smile was wide, but his eyes were calculating. I didn't expect to see you here personally. Is everything okay? I heard there was some kind of situation with Craig Patterson. Situation is one word for it. What happened? Craig Patterson was terminated this morning. He's currently under investigation for federal wage theft and benefit fraud. Marcus's face did something interesting. It tried to look surprised, but couldn't quite manage it. There was too much knowledge in his eyes. That's terrible. I had no idea. His performance reviews were always excellent. Were they? Of course, I approved them myself. I know you did. Damon held up his tablet. I also know you approved expense reports for phantom employees who don't exist. I know you buried employee complaints before they could reach corporate. And I know you've been receiving deposits into an offshore account that matches payments made to those same phantom employees. The color drained from Marcus Webb's face. Damon, I don't know what you're talking about. This is obviously some kind of misunderstanding. Is it? Craig must have been operating without my knowledge. If there was fraud happening, he concealed it from me. I'm a victim here too. Marcus, I'm going to give you one chance to tell me the truth. If you do, I'll make sure the prosecutors know you cooperated. It might make a difference in your sentencing. Webb's eyes darted around the room, looking for escape, finding none. I want a lawyer. That's your right, but before you call one, you should know that we have emails. We have financial records. We have Craig Patterson's complete confession, including detailed descriptions of your involvement. Craig's a liar. He's trying to save himself by dragging me down. He has documentation, Marcus. Dates, amounts, account numbers, everything. Webb's composure finally cracked. You don't understand. You don't understand how it works at the ground level. The pressure to hit numbers, the impossible targets, the constant demands for more efficiency, more profit, more. So you stole from employees to hit your numbers? I did what I had to do to survive. You sit up there in your corner office talking about employee welfare and corporate responsibility, but you don't know what it's like trying to meet your expectations, your targets, your demands. My demands never included stealing from workers. No, but your demands made it necessary. Every quarter squeeze a little more. Every year cut a little deeper. Where did you think that money was coming from? Damon, it was coming from them. From the invisible people at the bottom. The ones you pretend to care about. Damon stepped closer. I built this company to be different. You built this company to make money. Just like every other company, the rest is marketing. You're wrong. Am I? Then why did it take you 8 months to find out what was happening? Why did it take an anonymous email to get you off your throne? If you really cared about these people, you would have been watching. You would have been here, but you weren't. You were too busy giving speeches and counting profits. The words hit Damon like punches, because some of them were true. He had been distant. He had trusted systems instead of people. He had celebrated numbers while workers suffered. But that didn't excuse what Marcus Webb had done. You're under arrest, Damon said quietly. The federal investigators are waiting outside. You'll be charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, wage theft, and embezzlement. I expect you'll spend the next several years explaining to a judge how your survival required stealing from single mothers and pregnant women." Marcus Webb laughed bitterly. "You think you're so righteous, don't you, the great Damon Carter, champion of the working class? But we're the same, you and me. We both built our success on the backs of people like them. The only difference is I got caught." Security moved forward to escort him out. "Damon," Webb called over his shoulder, "when the press gets hold of this, when they start digging into how long this was happening, when they find out your systems failed to catch a massive fraud for almost a year, we'll see how righteous you feel then. We'll see how much your employees trust you when they realize their beloved CEO was blind to their suffering." The doors closed behind him. Damon stood alone in the empty store, Webb's words echoing in his mind. "We're the same, you and me," were they? Had he built his empire on the same exploitation he claimed to oppose, just hidden behind better marketing and nicer speeches? Rebecca approached carefully. "He's wrong, you know, what he said. You're nothing like him." "Aren't I? I didn't create the conditions that allowed Craig and Marcus to operate, but I didn't prevent them either. I trusted, I delegated, I looked at reports and believed they told the whole story. You can't be everywhere at once." "No, but I can be somewhere. I can remember that behind every number is a person. I can stop celebrating metrics and start paying attention to faces." He turned to look at her. "We're changing how we operate, Rebecca, not just here, everywhere, every store, every region, every level of management. That's going to take years. Then we better get started." At 8:15 p.m., Damon gathered the employees one final time. The audit was complete. 43 workers had been processed. 17 were owed back wages totaling over $47,000. 23 had been wrongfully denied benefits and were now enrolled in full health coverage. 6 had fraudulent disciplinary actions expunged from their records. "It's done," Damon announced. "Everyone who was harmed has been made whole, or as whole as paperwork can make someone." Angela stood beside him, still looking slightly overwhelmed by everything that had happened. "There's one more thing," Damon continued. "I want you to meet your new store manager." He stepped aside, and Angela moved forward on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. "I know most of you," she said, her voice trembling. "I've worked beside you. I've cleaned up after you. I've cried with some of you in that break room when things got too hard. I never imagined I would be standing here like this." She paused, gathering strength. "I don't have a business degree. I don't have management experience. I don't know all the things a manager is supposed to know. But I know what it feels like to be scared every day. I know what it feels like to be treated like you don't matter. And I know that as long as I'm standing in this position, no one in this store will ever feel that way again." Kevin started the applause this time. It spread through the room like a wave. "We're going to do things differently," Angela continued, growing more confident. "We're going to talk to each other. We're going to listen to each other. We're going to be a team, not a collection of people too scared to speak. And if anyone ever treats any of us the way Craig Patterson did, we're going to stand together and fight back. Because we're not invisible. We never were. We just needed someone to see us." She looked at Damon. And now someone finally did. The applause thundered through the store. People who had spent months in fear were hugging each other. People who had competed for scraps of hours were shaking hands. A community that had been deliberately broken was starting to rebuild. Damon watched all with a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. Not pride, exactly. Something deeper. A sense that this was why he had built everything he'd built. This moment, these people, this chance to do something that actually mattered. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Carter, this is Maria Gonzalez. I used to work at your Memphis store. I heard what happened in Atlanta. Please call me. I have a story you need to hear." Below it, another message. "This is James Thompson, former employee, Charlotte location. Please contact me. The things I saw." And another. "Mr. Carter, my name is Denise Williams. I was forced out of my job 6 months ago. I thought no one would ever believe me, but after hearing about Atlanta, I have hope again." The messages kept coming. 5, 10, 20. Workers from stores across the Southeast, all of them with stories to tell. All of them reaching out because for the first time they believed someone might actually listen. Damon stared at his phone, feeling the weight of what he had uncovered. Craig Patterson and Marcus Webb weren't anomalies. They were symptoms, and the disease ran through his entire company. At 9:30 p.m., Damon sat alone in the empty store reading message after message from workers he had never met. Each story was different, but the patterns were the same. Abusive managers, stolen wages, denied benefits, complaints that disappeared into a system designed to protect predators. His phone rang. Rebecca. "I've been getting calls all night," she said. "Workers from other stores. They're coming forward. Damon, this is bigger than Atlanta. Much bigger." "I know." "What do you want to do?" Damon looked around the store. At the empty registers, at the shelves full of products, at the break room where Angela had once cried alone in the darkness. "Everything," he said. "I want to do everything. Every store. Every complaint. Every worker who was harmed. We find them. We listen to them. We make it right." That could take years. It could cost millions. "I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how much it costs." His voice hardened. "I built this company on a promise I made to my mother's memory, a promise I've been breaking without even knowing it. That ends now." He hung up and walked to the front of the store. Through the glass doors, he could see the parking lot where Angela's old Honda had once carried her home after brutal shifts. He could see the loading dock where Kevin had warned him about the cost of fighting back. He could see all the invisible spaces where invisible people had suffered while he celebrated from a distance. No more. Tomorrow he would begin the real work. The work of rebuilding not just a store, but an entire company. The work of proving that power could be used for something other than exploitation. The work of keeping a promise he had almost forgotten he made. But tonight he allowed himself one moment of something like peace. Angela had her surgery. Maya would live. 43 workers had been restored to dignity. And somewhere in the darkness, others were finding the courage to speak. It wasn't enough. Not yet. Not nearly. But it was a start. 3 weeks had passed since the Atlanta confrontation, and Damon Carter had not slept more than 4 hours on any given night. The messages kept coming. Every morning, his inbox contained dozens of new stories. Workers from Memphis, Charlotte, Birmingham, Jacksonville. Each email painted the same picture of exploitation that he had witnessed in Atlanta. Each voice belonged to someone who had been invisible until now. At 6:15 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, Damon sat in his Chicago office reviewing the latest investigation reports. 17 stores were now under audit. 4 additional managers had been terminated. 2 more regional supervisors were facing federal charges. The total amount of stolen wages had climbed past $2 million. His phone rang. Rebecca Chen. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The board is calling an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. They're concerned about the negative publicity." "Negative publicity? We're uncovering systematic fraud. We're protecting workers. How is that negative?" "The stock price dropped 11% this week. Shareholders are nervous. Some board members are talking about limiting the investigation, containing the damage." Damon felt his jaw clench. "Containing the damage means covering up crimes." "I know, but you need to be prepared. They're going to push back hard." "Then I'll push back harder." At 7:30 a.m., Angela Robinson called from Atlanta. "Mr. Carter, I need to talk to you." "What's wrong? Is everything okay with Maya?" "Maya's fine. She's scheduled for surgery next week. The doctors say she's strong enough." Angela's voice was tight with something other than worry about her daughter. "It's something else. Something at the store." "Tell me." "There's a man who's been coming in every day for the past week, watching, taking notes. He doesn't buy anything. He just watches the employees, watches me." Damon's stomach dropped. "What does he look like?" "White, mid-40s, expensive suit. He doesn't say anything to anyone, but he's definitely watching." "Has he approached you directly?" "Once, yesterday. He came up to the customer service desk and asked if I was the new manager. When I said yes, he smiled and said something strange. He said, 'Enjoy it while it lasts.'" "Did you report this to security?" "They said there's nothing they can do unless he does something illegal. But Mr. Carter, something feels wrong. Something feels very wrong." Damon made 3 calls in rapid succession: security, legal, and his personal investigator. The answer came back within 2 hours. The man watching Angela was Richard Hartley, a private investigator with ties to several high-profile defense attorneys. His client list included white-collar criminals, corporate executives, and one recently terminated regional manager named Craig Patterson. At 10:45 a.m., Damon's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Carter, I think we should talk, privately, before things get out of hand. CP? Craig Patterson." Damon stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back, "Name the place." The response came immediately. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., The warehouse on Industrial Boulevard. Come alone, or don't come at all. Every instinct told Damon this was a trap, but every instinct also told him Craig Patterson was desperate, and desperate men made mistakes. He forwarded the message to his security chief with a single instruction: track this number and prepare a team. At 1:30 p.m., Damon boarded a private plane to Atlanta. He had told no one except Rebecca and his head of security about the meeting with Craig. The board meeting could wait. The shareholders could wait. Right now, the only thing that mattered was ending Craig Patterson's ability to threaten anyone ever again. When he landed at 4:45 p.m., Angela was waiting for him at the airport. "You shouldn't be here," Damon said. "Maya needs you." "Maya is with my sister, and I need to be here." Angela's eyes were fierce. "That man Craig hired has been following me for a week. He was outside my apartment building this morning, outside my daughter's school yesterday. I'm done being afraid, Mr. Carter. I spent 3 years being afraid of Craig Patterson. I'm not spending one more day. This could be dangerous." "My whole life has been dangerous. At least now I get to fight back." They drove to the hotel where Damon had spent his undercover nights. The same cheap room, the same worn carpet, the same view of the parking lot where Craig Patterson had once held absolute power over dozens of lives. "Tell me about the store," Damon said. "How are the employees doing?" Angela's expression softened. "Better, much better. Kevin got promoted to assistant manager. Jasmine's on maternity leave with full pay. Everyone's hours are stable. Nobody's been threatened or harassed in 3 weeks. And you, how are you doing?" "I'm terrified." Angela laughed softly. "Every day I wake up thinking this is the day it all falls apart. The day someone realizes I don't belong in that office. The day the old world comes back. It's not coming back. I won't let it. With respect, Mr. Carter, you can't control everything. You're one man. And there are a lot of Craig Pattersons in the world." "Then we'll fight them one at a time." At 7:00 p.m., Damon received another message. This one from Maria Gonzalez, the former Memphis employee who had first reached out to him. "Mr. Carter, something happened today. Something bad. Please call me." He dialed immediately. "Maria, what's wrong?" "They found me." Her voice was shaking. "I don't know how, but they found me. I got a call this morning from a man who said if I testified against my former manager, I would regret it. He knew where I live. He knew where my kids go to school. He knew everything." "Who called you?" "He didn't give a name. But he mentioned Craig Patterson. Said if Craig goes down, a lot of people go down with him. And they don't intend to go down quietly." Damon felt ice form in his chest. This was bigger than one store. Bigger than one region. There was a network. A system of protection that reached far beyond what he had uncovered. "Maria, I'm going to send someone to you tonight, a security team. They'll make sure you and your family are safe." "Mr. Carter, I'm scared. I just wanted to do the right thing. I just wanted someone to know what happened to me. I didn't know it would turn into this." "You did the right thing, and I'm going to make sure no one else has to be afraid." He hung up and immediately called his security chief. "I need protection details on every witness who's come forward. Every single one. Starting tonight." "That's going to be expensive." "I don't care what it costs. These people trusted me. I'm not going to let them be hurt for telling the truth." At 9:30 p.m., Damon sat alone in his hotel room reviewing the evidence his team had compiled on Craig Patterson's connections. The web was vast. Lawyers, business associates, former colleagues at other companies. Craig had spent years building a network of people who owed him favors, and he was calling in those favors now. But there was something else. Something Damon hadn't expected. Craig Patterson's lawyer was a man named Victor Reynolds. Reynolds was one of the most expensive defense attorneys in the Southeast, known for representing executives in corporate fraud cases. His fees started at $1,000 an hour. A recently terminated store manager couldn't afford Victor Reynolds. Not on his own. Someone was paying Craig's legal bills. Someone with very deep pockets. Damon's phone rang. An unknown number. "Mr. Carter?" The voice was smooth, cultured, familiar. "I don't believe we've spoken directly before. My name is Harrison Wells." The name hit Damon like a physical blow. Harrison Wells was a member of his own board of directors. One of the original investors who had helped him build Carter Retail Empire from a single store into a national chain. "Harrison, why are you calling me at 9:30 at night?" "Because we need to talk, before tomorrow's board meeting. Before you do something you'll regret." "Like what?" "Like continuing this investigation, like destroying the company we built together over a few disgruntled employees." "A few disgruntled employees, Harrison, we've uncovered over $2 million in stolen wages, 4 managers facing federal charges, dozens of workers who were systematically abused." all of which could be settled quietly, privately, without the publicity that's destroying our stock price. Settled quietly? You mean covered up? I mean handled like professionals, like businessmen, not like some crusading vigilante who thinks he can change the world by burning down everything he's built. Damon's hand tightened on the phone. Harrison, are you the one paying Craig Patterson's legal bills? A long silence. Then that's a very direct question. I'm a very direct person. Let's just say I have an interest in ensuring that this situation doesn't spiral any further out of control. Craig Patterson knows things, Damon. Things about how this company really operates. Things that could be very damaging if they came out in a federal trial. What things that predate your crusade. Things that involve people who are still very much part of this organization. People who would be very unhappy if their names appeared in court documents. Damon felt the floor shift beneath him. Are you threatening me, Harrison? I'm offering you a way out. Stop the investigation. Settle with the employees quietly. Let Craig Patterson plead to reduce charges in exchange for his silence and move on. And if I don't, then tomorrow's board meeting is going to be very unpleasant for everyone. The line went dead. At 6:00 a.m. the next morning, Damon woke to 17 new messages. More witnesses threatened. More employees afraid. More evidence of a conspiracy that reached higher than he had ever imagined. He showered, dressed, and called Angela. I need you at the warehouse today, 2 p.m., but stay in the car until I give the signal. What's happening? Craig Patterson wants to meet. He says he wants to talk privately. It's a trap. I know. That's why I need backup. Someone I trust. You trust me? Angela, right now, you're one of the only people I trust. At 9:00 a.m., Damon video-conferenced into the emergency board meeting from his hotel room. 11 faces stared at him from the screen. Some concerned. Some hostile. Harrison Wells sat in the center, his expression unreadable. Damon, the board chairman began, we've called this meeting to discuss the ongoing situation at Carter Retail Empire. As you know, our stock price has declined significantly over the past 3 weeks. Shareholders are concerned. Media coverage has been overwhelmingly negative. Media coverage has been truthful, Damon interrupted. We uncovered systematic fraud and abuse. We're taking action to correct it. That's not negative. That's responsible. With respect, Harrison Wells interjected, the manner in which this has been handled has been anything but responsible, going undercover without board approval, terminating managers without proper documentation, inviting federal investigators into our operations. Proper documentation, Harrison. I have recorded confessions. I have financial records showing millions in stolen wages. What more documentation do you need? Documentation that follows corporate protocol. Documentation that protects the company from liability. Documentation that doesn't make us look like we've been running a criminal enterprise. We were running a criminal enterprise. That's the whole point. The board erupted into argument. Some members sided with Damon. Others sided with Harrison. The chairman tried to restore order, failed, and finally called for a vote. The motion on the floor is to suspend all ongoing investigations pending a full review by outside counsel. All in favor? 6 hands went up, including Harrison Wells. All opposed, 5 hands, including Damon's. The motion carries. Damon, as of this moment, all investigations are suspended. You can't do this. We just did. Harrison's voice was cold. This is how corporations work, Damon. Majority rules, even when the majority is wrong. This isn't about corporate governance. This is about protecting criminals. Be very careful what accusations you make in front of witnesses. Harrison leaned forward. You're still the CEO of this company, but that can change. The board has the authority to remove you if we determine you're acting against the company's best interests. The company's best interests? What about the workers' best interests? What about the people who were robbed and abused while this board looked the other way? Those people will be compensated, quietly, privately, without destroying everything we've built. Damon stood up from his desk. I built this company. I built it from nothing, and I didn't build it so that people like you could profit from human suffering. Damon, sit down. No, I'm done sitting down. I'm done following protocols that protect predators. I'm done pretending that stock prices matter more than human beings. He looked directly at Harrison Wells. And I'm done letting you threaten witnesses and pay off criminals to cover your own complicity. Harrison's face went pale. What did you just say? You heard me? I know you're paying Craig Patterson's legal bills. I know you've been threatening witnesses. and I know there are things in this company's past that you're terrified will come out. You can't prove any of that. Not yet, but I will. Damon disconnected from the call. At 1:45 p.m., he arrived at the warehouse on Industrial Boulevard. It was an abandoned distribution center, empty for years, the perfect place for a private conversation that nobody wanted recorded. Angela sat in a car across the street, her phone ready to call for help. 15 minutes, Damon told her. If I'm not out in 15 minutes, call the police. Be careful. I'm always careful. He walked into the warehouse alone. Craig Patterson was waiting inside, standing in a pool of light from a broken skylight. He looked different than Damon remembered. Thinner, paler, the confident swagger replaced by something desperate and dangerous. You came alone. You asked me to. I didn't think you would. Rich guys like you usually hide behind lawyers and security guards. I'm not hiding from you, Craig. I'm not hiding from anyone. Craig laughed bitterly. You think you're so much better than me, don't you, the great Damon Carter? Champion of the working class, savior of the oppressed. I don't think I'm better than you. I know I'm better than you, because I've never stolen from people who couldn't fight back. I've never terrorized vulnerable workers for my own amusement. I've never threatened pregnant women or denied sick children medical care. You've never had to. You were born lucky. You built your empire on luck and timing and being in the right place at the right time. I had to fight for everything I ever got. So you fought by destroying people weaker than you. That's not fighting, Craig. That's cowardice. Craig's face twisted with rage. I didn't ask you here to listen to your lectures. I asked you here to make a deal. What kind of deal? You drop the charges against me, all of them. You make the federal investigation go away, and in return, I keep my mouth shut about things that could destroy you. What things? Craig smiled, a cold, predatory smile that Damon remembered from the night shift. Things like the fact that your company has been cooking its books for years. Things like the fact that 3 of your board members have been skimming profits since before you went public. Things like the fact that the great Damon Carter's empire is built on the same kind of fraud he claims to despise. You're lying. Am I? Ask Harrison Wells. Ask him about the offshore accounts. Ask him about the shell companies. Ask him about the real reason your labor costs have been so low for so long. Damon felt the ground shift beneath him. Even if that's true, it doesn't excuse what you did. No, but it makes you just as guilty as me. You profited from the same system I worked in. You just didn't get your hands dirty. You let people like me do the dirty work while you collected the checks and gave speeches about corporate responsibility. I didn't know. Ignorance isn't innocence, Damon. You chose not to know. You chose to look away, and that makes you complicit. Damon stood silent for a long moment. The weight of Craig's words pressed down on him like a physical force. What do you want? I told you. Drop the charges, make the investigation go away, and give me $2 million to disappear quietly. And if I refuse, then everything comes out. The board members, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, everything. I'll burn this whole thing to the ground, and I'll make sure you burn with it. You'd destroy yourself just to destroy me. I've got nothing left to lose. You took everything from me. My job, my reputation, my future. All I've got left is the ability to hurt you. And believe me, I'm going to use it. Damon looked at the man who had tormented Angela Robinson for 3 years. The man who had denied a child medical care. The man who had built his career on human suffering. No. What? No deal. I'm not dropping the charges. I'm not making the investigation go away. And I'm definitely not giving you $2 million. Craig's face contorted with fury. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. And I'd rather lose everything than become the kind of person who pays off predators to protect himself. You don't understand what you're doing. I understand exactly what I'm doing. I'm choosing to do the right thing even if it costs me everything. That's something you've never understood, Craig. That's why you lost. That's why you'll always lose. Craig lunged forward, his fist flying toward Damon's face. Damon caught his arm twisted and sent Craig sprawling to the concrete floor. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, Damon said quietly. You think I don't know how to fight? Craig scrambled backward, his face bleeding where it had struck the ground. This isn't over. Yes, it is. For you. Damon pulled out his phone. I recorded this entire conversation, your attempt at blackmail, your confession that you know about fraud at the board level, everything. Craig's face went white. That's inadmissible. You can't. I'm not planning to use it in court. I'm planning to use it to convince the other board members that protecting you isn't worth the risk. Once they hear that you're willing to expose everyone to save yourself, they'll throw you to the wolves so fast you won't know what hit you. You can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you. You did this to yourself. Every decision you made, every person you hurt, every crime you committed, it all led here, to this moment, to you alone and bleeding with nothing left but empty threats. Damon walked toward the exit. Enjoy prison, Craig. I hear they don't treat white-collar criminals very well. Outside, Angela was waiting. Are you okay? I heard shouting. I'm fine, but we need to move fast. Things are about to get very complicated. At 5:30 p.m., Damon sent the recording of his conversation with Craig to every member of the board except Harrison Wells. At 6:15 p.m., his phone started ringing. Board members panicked, demanding explanations, threatening lawsuits, begging for deals. At 7:00 p.m., Harrison Wells called. What have you done? What I should have done from the beginning. I told the truth. You've destroyed us. You've destroyed everything. No, I've exposed what was already rotten. The destruction happened long before I got involved. The company will collapse. The stock will be worthless. Thousands of employees will lose their jobs. Then we'll rebuild, from the ground up, without the corruption, without the fraud, without people like you. You think you can survive this. You think the shareholders will forgive you. You think anyone will ever trust you again. I don't care about shareholders. I don't care about stock prices. I care about the workers who were robbed, the families who were destroyed, the people who trusted us and were betrayed. You're a fool. Maybe, but I'm a fool who can sleep at night. At 8:45 p.m., the first news story broke. Carter Retail Empire CEO uncovers massive fraud scheme. By midnight, it was the top story on every business channel. The stock had dropped another 20%. 3 board members had resigned. Federal investigators had expanded their probe to include corporate leadership. And Damon Carter sat in his hotel room in Atlanta watching it all unfold, knowing that everything he had built was falling apart. His phone buzzed, a text from Angela. Whatever happens, thank you for seeing us, for fighting for us. Whatever happens next, that will never change. Damon stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back, It's not over yet. Meet me at the store tomorrow, 9 a.m. We have work to do. At 2:00 a.m., Damon finally allowed himself to feel the weight of what he had done. He had exposed his own company's corruption. He had likely destroyed his career, his reputation, possibly his freedom. The empire he had spent 20 years building was crumbling around him. But somewhere in Atlanta, a little girl named Maya was going to have her surgery. A woman named Angela was going to lead a store where workers were treated with dignity. A community of invisible people was finally being seen. That had to be worth something. It had to be worth everything. He thought about his mother, about her cracked hands and tired eyes, about the promise he had made at her grave. I kept it, Mama, he whispered to the empty room. It took me too long and it cost me too much, but I kept it. Outside, the Atlanta skyline glittered with 1,000 lights. Somewhere in that city, workers were waking up for early shifts. Mothers were preparing breakfast for children. People were struggling to survive in a world that too often ignored them. But not anymore. Not in his company. Not as long as he had breath to fight. The investigation would continue. The board would be rebuilt. The corruption would be rooted out no matter how deep it went. And when it was over, when the dust settled and the truth was fully known, there would be a company worth believing in again. A company that kept its promises. A company that saw the invisible. A company that his mother would have been proud of. That was worth losing everything else. 6 months had passed since the night Damon Carter walked into his own store disguised as a desperate janitor. The world had changed. His world had changed. And on this morning, standing outside Children's Healthcare of Atlanta at 5:47 a.m., he was about to witness the most important change of all. Angela Robinson sat beside him in the waiting room, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had turned white. She hadn't slept in 3 days. Neither had Damon. Maya's surgery had been scheduled for 6:00 a.m., and they had arrived 4 hours early because neither of them could bear to be anywhere else. Tell me again, Angela whispered. Tell me she's going to be okay. She's going to be okay. The best pediatric cardiac surgeon in the country is operating on her. The procedure has a 97% success rate. Maya is strong. She's a fighter, just like her mother. I'm not strong. I've never been strong. Angela, you survived 3 years of Craig Patterson. You raised a daughter alone while working full-time. You stood up to a monster when everyone else was too afraid to speak. That's not weakness. That's the definition of strength. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Robinson, we're ready to take Maya back now." Angela stood on legs that felt like water. Damon stood with her. "Can I see her first, just for a moment?" "Of course, follow me." They walked through corridors that smelled of antiseptic and fear past rooms where other families waited for news that would change their lives. At the end of the hallway, in a small, pre-operative room, Maya Robinson lay on a hospital bed that seemed far too big for her tiny body. "Mama?" Her voice was sleepy from the sedatives, but her eyes lit up when she saw Angela. "You came." "Of course I came, baby. I'll always come." "Is Mr. Damon here too?" Damon stepped forward. "I'm here, Maya. I'm not going anywhere." Maya smiled. That same bright smile from the photograph in Angela's locker. The smile that had kept her mother fighting through the darkest nights. "Mama told me you're the one who made the surgery happen. She said you're like a superhero, but without the cape." "Your mama is the superhero, Maya. I just helped a little." "Will you take care of her while I'm sleeping? She gets scared when she's alone." Damon felt his throat tighten. "I promise, I'll take care of her." "Okay." Maya's eyes were starting to close. "I'm going to dream about running. Mama says after the surgery I can run like the other kids. Is that true?" "That's true, baby girl. After the surgery you can run as fast as you want." Maya's eyes closed completely. The nurse stepped forward to wheel her toward the operating room. Angela grabbed her daughter's hand one last time. "I love you, Maya. I love you more than anything in the world." "Love you too, Mama. See you when I wake up." The doors closed behind her. Angela collapsed into Damon's arms. At 6:15 a.m., the surgery began. Damon and Angela sat in the waiting room surrounded by other families in various states of anxiety and hope. Some prayed, some paced, some stared at the walls like prisoners waiting for a verdict. Angela couldn't do any of those things. She just sat frozen, her eyes fixed on the doors where her daughter had disappeared. "Talk to me," she said finally. "Tell me about the company. Tell me about what's been happening. I need to think about something else or I'm going to lose my mind." Damon understood. Sometimes the only way to survive the unbearable was to focus on the mundane. The board has been completely restructured. Harrison Wells resigned last month. He's facing federal charges for his role in the fraud. 3 other board members are under investigation. What about the stock price? Still down, but it's stabilizing. The new investors understand what we're trying to build. They're not looking for quick profits. They're looking for a company they can believe in. And the employees, the ones who came forward, every single one of them has been compensated, full back wages plus damages. The ones who were wrongfully terminated have been offered their jobs back with promotions. Maria Gonzalez is now the regional manager for Memphis. James Thompson is running the Charlotte store. Angela almost smiled. "So we're not the only ones." "No, we're not the only ones. There are people like you all over this company now. People who know what it feels like to be invisible. People who will never let anyone else feel that way." "What about Craig Patterson?" Damon's jaw tightened. "Sentenced 2 months ago, federal court, 12 years for wire fraud, wage theft, and conspiracy, plus civil penalties that will take everything he has. 12 years. Not enough, but it's something. He'll never hurt anyone again." Angela was quiet for a moment. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't come, if you'd just sent investigators like a normal CEO, if you'd never heard me crying in that bathroom?" "Every day. I think about it every day, and every day I'm grateful that I made the decision I made." Why did you put on those old clothes and mop floors next to me? Why did you care?" Damon thought about his mother, about her hands, about her grave, about the promise he had made and almost forgotten. "Because my mother worked her whole life for people who never learned her name. Because she died believing she didn't matter, because I swore I would never let anyone feel that way in a company I built." "Did you keep that promise?" "For a while I thought I did. Now I know I didn't. I got so far away from the ground that I couldn't see what was happening. I trusted systems instead of people. I celebrated numbers instead of faces." "But you came back." "I came back, and I'm never leaving again." At 8:30 a.m., a nurse came to give them an update. The surgery was going well. Maya's vitals were strong. The surgeon had found the defect and was beginning the repair. Angela started crying again, but this time the tears were different. These were tears of hope. At 9:15 a.m., Damon's phone buzzed. A message from Rebecca Chen. "The National Retail Federation speech is confirmed for next month. They want you to keynote on the transformation, full press coverage, international broadcast." Damon typed back, "I'll be there, but I want Angela with me. She's the real story." Done? We'll arrange everything. He showed the message to Angela. What do you think ready to tell your story to the world? I'm a janitor turned store manager. What could I possibly say that anyone would want to hear? You could say everything about what it feels like to be invisible, about what it feels like to fight back, about what it means when someone with power finally uses it for good. I'm not a public speaker. Neither was I once, but some stories are too important not to tell. At 10:47 a.m., the surgeon appeared in the waiting room doorway. Angela was on her feet before he could say a word. Her whole body was trembling. Damon stood beside her, his hand on her arm. Mrs. Robinson. Yes, is she okay? Is Maya okay? The surgeon's face broke into a smile. The surgery was a complete success. We repaired the defect perfectly. Maya is going to make a full recovery. In a few months, she'll be running and playing like any other child her age. Angela's legs gave out. Damon caught her before she hit the ground. She's okay, Angela sobbed. She's okay. She's okay. She's more than okay, the surgeon continued. She's one of the strongest patients I've ever had. Her heart was fighting to survive. Now it finally can. When can I see her? She'll be in recovery for about 2 hours. Then you can be with her when she wakes up. The surgeon shook Damon's hand. Mr. Carter, thank you for making this possible. When we heard that Carter Retail Empire was covering the full cost of the surgery plus all follow-up care, our entire team was moved. This is what corporate responsibility should look like. Don't thank me. Thank her mother. She's the one who never gave up. At 1:00 p.m., Maya Robinson opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was her mother's face streaming with tears. Mama, why are you crying? Because I'm happy, baby. Because you're okay. Because everything is going to be okay. Does that mean I can run now? Angela laughed through her tears. Soon, baby. Very soon. Maya's eyes moved around the room and found Damon standing near the door. Mr. Damon, you kept your promise. You took care of Mama. I'll always keep my promises, Maya. That's what friends do. Are we friends? The best kind of friends. Maya smiled that bright, beautiful smile. Then her eyes closed again as sleep took her. Angela turned to Damon with tears still streaming down her face. I don't know how to thank you. For everything. For seeing me when I was invisible. For fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. For giving my daughter a future. You don't have to thank me. You reminded me who I was supposed to be. That's worth more than anything I could ever give you. At 3:30 p.m., Damon left the hospital and drove to the Atlanta store. The change was visible from the moment he walked through the doors. Employees moved with purpose instead of fear. Customers were being helped by staff who actually seemed to care. The atmosphere was completely different from the place he had infiltrated 6 months ago. Kevin Mitchell was the first to see him. Mr. Carter, we weren't expecting you today. I wanted to see how things were going. How's the team? Better than ever. Employee satisfaction scores are the highest in the company. Customer complaints are down 70%. And we just got word that we're being considered for the Regional Excellence Award. That's Angela's doing. It's everyone's doing. But yeah, she's the heart of it. She knows everyone's name, knows their families, knows when someone's struggling and needs extra support. She's not just a manager, she's a leader. Damon felt a warmth spread through his chest. This was what he had always wanted his company to be. This was the promise he had made finally kept. Where is she now? At the hospital with Maya. But she's been calling in every few hours to check on the team. Even from her daughter's bedside, she's still thinking about us. That's what real leadership looks like. At 5:00 p.m., Damon gathered the employees for an impromptu meeting. I know Angela can't be here right now, he said. She's with her daughter, who just came out of successful heart surgery. The applause was immediate and thunderous. These people knew Maya's story. They had watched Angela struggle for years. Her victory was their victory. But I wanted to tell you something while she's not here to stop me from saying it. What you've built in this store over the past 6 months is extraordinary. Not because of the numbers, although those are impressive, because of how you treat each other, because of the community you've created, because of the example you're setting for every other store in this company. He looked around at the faces watching him. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, old and young, men and women, and man. People who had once been invisible now standing proud. 6 months ago, I came here because I heard someone crying in a bathroom. I thought I was coming to fix a problem. Instead, I found a family that just needed someone to believe in them. You've taught me more about leadership in 6 months than I learned in 20 years of running this company. What happens now, Mr. Carter? Someone called out. Is everything going to stay the same? No, it's going to get better. We're implementing the employee council system company-wide. We're raising minimum wages across all stores. We're expanding benefits and creating pathways for advancement. And we're making sure that what happened here, what Craig Patterson did to you, can never happen again. How can you guarantee that? Because people like Angela Robinson are going to be watching. Because people like Kevin Mitchell are going to be speaking up. Because you're not invisible anymore. You never were. You just needed someone to see you. At 7:00 p.m., Damon returned to the hospital. Maya was awake again, sitting up in bed, already asking when she could go home. Angela sat beside her, holding her hand, looking happier than Damon had ever seen her. "Mr. Carter?" Maya's voice was stronger now. "Mama said you came to see us." "I came to see how my favorite patient is doing." "I'm doing great. The doctor said I can go home in a few days, and then in a few weeks I can start running, for real, not just dreaming about it." "Where will you run first?" Maya thought about it seriously. "The park near our apartment. There's a big field there where the other kids play. I used to watch them from the window. Now I can play with them." "That sounds perfect. Will you come watch when I run for the first time? I wouldn't miss it for anything." Angela met Damon's eyes over her daughter's head. So much had changed in 6 months. So much had been lost, but so much more had been gained. "Mr. Carter," Angela said softly, "there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" "I've been offered a position at corporate, Regional Director of Employee Relations. They want me to help implement the new policies across the Southeast." Damon smiled. "I know, I approved the offer personally. But it means leaving the store, leaving the team I built. It means taking what you learned and spreading it further, helping more people, reaching more stores, making sure no one else has to go through what you went through." "What about the Atlanta store?" "Kevin's ready, you've trained him well, and you'll still be overseeing the region. You'll still be connected." Angela was quiet for a long moment. "A year ago, I was cleaning toilets and praying my daughter would survive. Now I'm being offered a job that could change thousands of lives." "That's what happens when someone finally sees your potential, when someone gives you a chance." "You gave me more than a chance. You gave me hope." At 9:00 p.m., Damon sat alone in the hospital cafeteria drinking cold coffee and thinking about everything that had happened. His phone buzzed, a message from Rebecca. "Final tally from the investigation. Across all stores, 847 employees were affected by wage theft and benefit fraud. Total restitution paid $4.7 million. Additional damages and settlements $12.3 million. Criminal charges filed against 23 individuals, including 7 managers and 4 corporate executives." The numbers were staggering. 847 people who had been stolen from. 847 families who had struggled because someone decided their suffering was acceptable. But there was more to the message. Also, the employee satisfaction survey results are in. Company-wide satisfaction has increased 47% since the reforms began. Turnover is down 62%. Productivity is up 23%, and customer satisfaction has reached its highest level in company history. Damon stared at the numbers. For years, he had been told that treating employees well was expensive, that it hurt the bottom line, that you had to choose between profits and people. The numbers proved that was a lie. When you treat people with dignity, they work harder, they care more, they stay longer, they give customers better service. Everyone wins. Everyone except the predators who had been profiting from exploitation. At 10:30 p.m., Damon called his mother's grave. He didn't believe in an afterlife. He didn't think she could hear him. But somehow, talking to her felt right. "I kept my promise, Mama. It took me too long and I almost lost my way, but I kept it. There are 847 people tonight who know someone saw them, who know their suffering mattered, who know they're not invisible." He thought about Angela, about Maya, about Kevin and Jasmine and Maria and James and all the others whose lives had been changed. "I wish you could have met them, Mama. I wish you could have seen what we're building. A company where people like you would be treated with respect, where your work would matter, where you would matter." His voice cracked. "I miss you every day, and every day I try to be the man you raised me to be. I fail sometimes. I get lost sometimes, but I always find my way back. Because you taught me what's important. You taught me that people matter more than money, that dignity matters more than power, that seeing the invisible is the most important thing anyone can do." He wiped his eyes. "I love you, Mama. I always will." 1 month later, Damon stood at the podium of the National Retail Federation's annual conference. The auditorium was packed. 3,000 retail executives from around the world. Cameras from every major news network. His face would be broadcast to millions, but he wasn't nervous. He knew exactly what he needed to say. "A year ago, he began. "I thought I was running a successful company. Our profits were up. Our efficiency ratings were stellar. Our management reviews were glowing. By every metric that Wall Street cares about, Carter Retail Empire was thriving." He paused. "I was wrong. I wasn't running a successful company. I was presiding over a system that allowed good people to suffer while predators profited from their pain. And I didn't even know it." He clicked to the next slide. A photograph of Angela in her custodial uniform taken from security footage on that first night. "This is Angela Robinson. A year ago, she was cleaning floors in my Atlanta store. She had worked there for 3 years, never missed a day, never been late. She was raising a daughter alone, a little girl with a heart condition who needed surgery to survive. Angela needed health insurance to afford that surgery, and she was denied that insurance by a manager who manipulated her schedule to keep her classified as part-time." The auditorium was completely silent. "I found Angela crying in a bathroom. She didn't know who I was. She just knew that someone had finally stopped to ask if she was okay, and in that moment my entire understanding of leadership changed." He clicked to another slide. Angela at her desk wearing her blazer, surrounded by her team. Today, Angela Robinson is the Regional Director of Employee Relations for Carter Retail Empire's Southeast Division. She oversees 23 stores and more than 3,000 employees. Her daughter Maya is healthy and strong, running and playing like any other 9-year-old, and the man who tormented Angela for 3 years is serving 12 years in federal prison. Applause began to ripple through the auditorium. But this story isn't about me. It's not even about Angela. It's about every invisible person in every workplace who has been told they don't matter. It's about every worker who has been exploited by someone with power. It's about every family that has suffered because we chose profits over people. He stepped away from the podium. The retail industry employs more than 15 million Americans. 15 million people who stock our shelves, run our registers, clean our floors, and make our businesses possible, and for too long we have treated them as disposable, as numbers on a spreadsheet, as costs to be cut. His voice grew stronger. That ends now. At least in my company, that ends now. We've implemented industry-leading wages, comprehensive benefits, and employee councils that give workers direct access to leadership. We've created pathways for advancement that allow people like Angela Robinson to rise from the stockroom to the boardroom. And we've established zero-tolerance policies for the kind of abuse that flourished under predators like Craig Patterson. He looked directly into the cameras. "I'm not sharing this to boast. I'm sharing this as a challenge to every CEO, every executive, every manager in this room. Look at your workers. Really look at them. Not as expenses, not as resources, as human beings with families, and dreams and lives that matter. Because here's what I've learned. When you treat people with dignity, they work harder, they care more, they stay longer, they make your company better. It's not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. Our employee satisfaction is up 47%. Our turnover is down 62%. Our customer satisfaction is at an all-time high, and our profits have increased in every quarter since we began the reforms." He paused. "You don't have to choose between people and profits. That's a lie we've been told by people who profit from exploitation. The truth is, treating people well is good business. It's good ethics. And it's the only sustainable way to build something that lasts." He gestured to the side of the stage. "Now, I want to introduce someone who can tell this story better than I ever could. Someone who lived it. Someone who survived it. Someone who emerged from invisibility to become one of the most important leaders in our company. Ladies and gentlemen, Angela Robinson." Angela walked onto the stage, her head held high, her eyes bright. The applause was thunderous. She stood at the podium and looked out at the sea of faces. Executives who controlled billions of dollars. Leaders who shaped the lives of millions of workers. People who could change the world if they chose to. "My name is Angela Robinson. 18 months ago, I was cleaning toilets for $12 an hour while my daughter waited to die." The room went completely silent. "I worked 3 years without missing a single day. I showed up early and stayed late. I did everything right. And I still couldn't get the health insurance I needed to save my daughter's life. Because a man named Craig Patterson thought my suffering was entertaining. Because nobody with power cared enough to look. Because I was invisible." Her voice grew stronger. "But then someone saw me. Someone stopped to ask if I was okay. Someone cared enough to fight for me when I couldn't fight for myself. And everything changed." She looked at Damon. "I'm not here to tell you that Damon Carter is a hero. He'd be the first to tell you he made mistakes. He got too far away from the ground. He trusted systems instead of people. He let predators operate in his name for far too long. But when he finally saw the truth, he did something about it. He used his power to lift people up instead of grinding them down. She turned back to the audience. That's what I want to challenge all of you to do. Use your power. Look at the people who work for you. Really look at them. See their struggles. Hear their pain, and do something about it. Because let me tell you something about invisible people. We're not invisible because we're not worth seeing. We're invisible because you choose not to look. Every cleaner, every cashier, every warehouse worker, every overnight stalker. We're real people with real lives and real families. We're the ones who make your companies run, and we deserve to be treated like we matter. Her voice cracked with emotion. My daughter Maya is 9 years old now. She runs, she plays, she laughs. She's alive because someone finally decided to see her mother. Someone finally decided that a janitor's child deserved to live just as much as a CEO's child. Tears were streaming down her face. I don't know what it takes to make people like you care about people like me. I don't know what words will break through the walls of indifference and greed, but I know this. Every night somewhere in your company, someone is crying alone. Someone is being exploited. Someone is losing hope. The question is, will you see them? Will you stop and ask if they're okay? Will you use your power to change their lives? Because if you won't, then all of this means nothing. All the speeches and policies and reforms mean nothing. Change doesn't come from systems. Change comes from people, from leaders who choose to lead with compassion instead of cruelty, from executives who remember that every number on their spreadsheet represents a human being. She looked at Damon one more time. I used to believe that people like me would always be invisible, that the world would never see us, that we would work and struggle and suffer until we died, and nobody would even notice. I don't believe that anymore. Because now I know that one person can make a difference. One moment of compassion can change everything. One leader who chooses to see can transform an entire company, an entire industry, an entire world. Be that person. Be the one who sees. Be the one who cares. Be the one who acts. Because somewhere in your company right now, someone is crying alone in a bathroom. They're waiting for someone to knock on the door. They're waiting for someone to ask if they're okay. Don't make them wait any longer. The applause that followed was deafening. It went on for 5 minutes. 10 minutes. People were standing. People were crying. People were changed. After the conference, Damon and Angela stood together outside the convention center. You did it, Damon said. You told your story to the world. Our story. We told our story. What happens now? Angela smiled. Now we keep fighting. Now we make sure that what happened to me never happens to anyone else. Now we build something worth believing in. Together. Together. 6 months after that speech, Angela Robinson was named one of Fortune's most influential women in business. Her story had inspired legislative changes in 3 states strengthening protections for hourly workers. The Worker-Verified Fair Employment certification she had proposed was now used by over 200 companies nationwide. Maya Robinson, now 10 years old, had just finished her first season on her school's track team. She wasn't the fastest, but she ran. She ran with a heart that had been broken and healed, that had been saved by a mother who never gave up and a stranger who stopped to ask if she was okay. Damon Carter's company was stronger than ever. The reforms he had implemented had become a model for the entire retail industry. His face was no longer on magazine covers celebrating wealth and success. It was on covers celebrating something more important. Change. Compassion. The revolutionary idea that workers were human beings who deserved dignity. And in the Atlanta store, on a wall near the customer service desk, there hung a framed photograph. Angela Robinson in her custodial uniform standing beside Damon Carter in his worn jeans and scuffed work boots. 2 people who had been brought together by a moment of tears. 2 people who had changed each other's lives. Below the photograph, a simple plaque read, "This is where it began. This is why it matters. This is what we're fighting for." Every new employee was shown that photograph on their first day. Every one of them heard the story. Every one of them was reminded that they mattered, that they were seen, that they would never be invisible. Because real leadership isn't about commanding from above. It's about seeing from below. It's about recognizing that every person, no matter how small their job or how quiet their voice, has value that cannot be measured in dollars. It's about using power not to exploit, but to elevate. Not to destroy, but to heal. Not to ignore, but to see. Damon Carter learned that lesson from a woman crying in a bathroom. He spent the rest of his life making sure the world learned it too, and somewhere in Atlanta, a little girl ran through a park, her heart whole, her future bright, living proof that one moment of compassion can change everything. That is the power of seeing the invisible. That is the promise of leadership that lifts instead of crushes. That is the truth that Craig Patterson never understood, that Harrison Wells never believed, that so many people in positions of power refuse to accept. But it is the truth nonetheless. People matter. Dignity matters. Compassion matters. And when those in power finally choose to see the invisible, to hear the voiceless, to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, everything changes. Everything becomes possible. Everything becomes better. Not someday, not eventually. Now, today, this moment. All it takes is one person brave enough to knock on a door and ask a simple question. Are you okay? The answer might break your heart, but the action you take afterward can heal the world. That is the lesson of Angela Robinson and Damon Carter. That is the challenge they left for everyone who heard their story. And that is the truth that will echo through every workplace, every boardroom, every conversation about what it means to lead. See the invisible. Hear the voiceless. Fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Because in the end, that is not just good leadership, it is the only leadership that matters.